von der zweiten Siebe, weil die wollte mit sein in Abrius. Lieber, dass ich gewinne eine Mathe, was ein normaler Mensch, und ich bin Potter von Eisig sein, ich will es versorgen. Noch wie bald, es ist ein von die gewinnt, zu mit sein in Abrius. Es ist aber immer wieder gegangen und ausgesucht, zu mir keinem sein Chesed. Es ist nicht nur eine Afgemine in dem Motiv, was mit tut dem Chesed. Es ist eine Afgemine in der ganzen Chefze von der Chesed. A Chesed, was einer tut, was in der Seele bei ihm Rachamim. Es ruft auch so in den Regelstück der Chesed. Tut wie weit es fordert. Also Verstehung sein herrlich von Rachamim. Aber einer, was tut Chesed, weil wir mit sein in Abrius, im Gedanken in jeder Brat und Brat, als Reisung hat ein richtiger Atom im Abrius. Der Lifter ist ein See gewesen. Ob Sorien, aber wo ich bin, ein schwerer Matze. Wissen wir, der Lifter sich da wusste, sich da wusste. Dann geben wir uns der Gitarre ein gewaltiger Chesed, mit die Ball L'chaim. The Rabbi said in English, our satisfaction is that we're able to help people. It says, sehr Musik von Chesed gewesen, weil sie wollt mit sein um Abrius. Darüber haben sie mit Danke gewesen, in jeder Tag, in jeder Brat, zu tun unter dem Chesed. Sie sind auf Shabbos und die Schmarrn sein. Ewig soll geben uns eine Amir-Ziesha. Was wir reden zu sein, ewig soll auch mal nicht so mal für. Die Kinder bringen Rabbon, wir hassen Rabbon. Hat gesagt, Askonen für die beste Askonen bei Yisroel. So seine Amir-Ziesha, für die Verbindung seine, für die Yeshiva. Zum Sodel der Rabbon. Wenn es jeder Rede, was sieht da im israelischen Land. Und ich soll jeder Rede, du jetzt in der Klau, kommt der gewaltige Gefühl von der Konnotativ zu der Lüfte. Ich bin aber gewesen eine schwere Matze, was ich ausgeguckt habe, die Schiebe kann ich Mamsche sein. Hat sich hereingeworfen in den, und nur zu lieb ihm steht die Schiebe halt. Nur zu lieb ihm ist einfach ein Abismörisch. Ich bin gerecht mit der Wochen zurück, der Bitte von der Konversative nicht aus Dankbarkeit. Sie zu machen sein die Themen, missbehnen sein die Themen, was der Mensch getan hat. Sie laufen an einem Weg. Sie mechazig sein die Sidra Yeshiva, mechazig sein der zweite Seele, die letzte Tufe, dass sehr stark gearbeitet haben. Sie sind umgegangen in Nafshe. Sie mechazig sein im zweiten Seele, mechazig sein im Nachtseele. Wir haben gesagt, die Tfile sind der Tfile, was sie wollen sehr notable Liebe. Wir haben gesagt, im Kulturien Mischmelisch, wir haben gesagt, im Horbanien Mischmelisch. Wenn ich das soll geben, soll sein am Melosieschen, an die Yeshiva soll trocken dem Kessel Teile. Die Lehrer mal Yeshivas, an Bias wie und Zerig, bis es tun in der Tag, aber es steht, du mach Hashem Dima, mir auch Kolponin begeben.
Morai ורבותיי, we are broadcasting the Levaya, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Mani Gador, saying Divrei Hesped on Rabbi Belsky, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha.
אז הבן סמטת מנצמם חזל זרום אז הבן להיות קבל יגימו נעשית בן בכל ישראל ונעבר 13 יור geht rein wird auch Hilfe für כל ישראל mit dem Zahn in Zerminien steht das so weiter aber Chod נעשה בן zum Ben Schleiben, also Ben Akrisch Baruch. Die drei Ben verstehen mir. Chazal sagen, so noch ein Ben. Ich sehe Ben Oilem Abo. Ben ist ein Ben von Oilem Abo. Es ist als ein Mensch, es ist gestellt als er. Wird geboren unter Tate Mamen. Sie hat, wenn steht dort in Chazal Mera, wie sie Gimel, lernt mit dem, also werden aber in Gimel wird Berli Kol Yisroel, Heilig von Kol Yisroel. Und noch ein Ben, Berchot בברל הקודש ברוך הוא. אבל das noch nicht geendigt. Soll sagen, sehr ben Olam Haba. הבן בסוף צריך בן Olam Haba. זה הלבן מזה הלבן von Olam Haba. Es war verschiedene Teile איזה מורה, אז geht בדרך רבויסר haben Nachricht von ihm. Was Rasche sagt. Rasche sagt, so es meint Ben. Sagt Rasche, Kol Shedas, Rabbi Noach, Emenu, sagt Rasche, Daitem Noach Alei, Mimashe Sheimrim Olov, Roim Boi. Das sagt Rasche. Rasche sagt, das ist aber neu am Boys. Der Rabbi, geht hat dann nicht weiß ich bin ein gewaltiger Eloi mit der gewaltigen Sikon. Ist gewinn ein Bär, was hat gejabschen von der Rabbi, hat mitgenommen der Rabbi mit sich. Was hat gelernt von der Rabbi, ist gewonnen ein Heilig von ihm. Hat gelebt als er. Das ist gewinn sein Metzies rein. Seine Achove in Cholmokem Shehu, das schon wird seine Geschreines. Aber bei Cesar Dose ben Olam Haba, als wir sehen den Deiter Rabbeisam Mechemen, Rabbeim gesehen, in dem Sitten sie sein Reben, Gata Retten, Gata Rabbeim, was hat gelebt mit Rabbeim, Cesar Dose war der Messias für Menschen. Das ist viel Madreges in Ben. Das ist ein Ben von der Tate Mame. Das ist der erste Ben, wird geboren. Ein Kind kann sich enthalten. Das allein steht, was ein Ben darf vom Chinuch. Wir haben nicht in Balchai, Balchai geht allein. Die Mama legt weg und dann das Kind kann schon allein fliehen. Ein Kind, das Mutter wurde. Und steht in der Chazal, bis 13 Jahre, da ist ein Gräten zu. Also kann sein, ein Ben die Kol Yisroel. Ben die Kol Yisroel. So werden wir gesagt, Ben die Kol Yisroel. Doch da weiter nicht mehr prägen. Ben Yisrael kann werden ein Ben l'Akadosh Baruch Hu. Ein Kind von Ben Yisrael. Gehört in Ben Yisrael Sameisa. Ben Yisrael ein Kind. Ben Yisrael ein Kind. Dann noch ein Dogme. Sehe Ben Olam Haba. Darf werden von sich ein Ben Olam Haba. Aber Olam Haba ist einer, was nimmt nicht. Sein Chinuch. Sein Chinuch lebt mit der Chinuch. Das ist Ben Olam Haba. Der Nifter, seine Geschreines, hat gelebt mit dem gewaltigen Messias Nefesh, gewaltig reingetan. Ein Mensch der Wege, Zimmerhaft, lernen mit jüdischen Kindern. Gearbeitet schwer ein ganzes Jahr. Alle andere Sachen, was gehabt. Ob ihr mal ganzen Sommer, für jüdische Kinder, weil ihr fühlt, dass kein Übergeben nicht steigt, wie geht, wie du. Wird man Rabbeinu so seine Medizinische für uns Salmen, für den ganzen Kol Yisroel. Kol Yisroel, davor man sagt, seine Medizinische für uns Salmen, für den Kol Yisroel, so sicher sein, der gute Schleimer bekommen.
Rabbi or Meir Weinberg.
Morai v'Rabotai, we just listened to the hesped of Rav Kamenetsky, and he says about the Niftar of Belsky, the Chetzadik Livrocha, about his chokhmah, his wisdom, and all what he got from his Rabbeim, that become part of him. He become like a son to the Torah, and now we're going to hear the continued hesped.
Comes with all our nisyonis and through effort, hasmoda, and determination, became an Odin Godel. This is a tremendous mechayev. It's a tremendous mechayev. Yes, he had more kishlenis and he remembered better, but basically he was a masmid Masmerots, all the years. And this is a mechayev that everybody sitting here can also be an Adam Gadol. It's not only Hakol Satoiv. It's a semel and a muster that we have to try to emulate. What does it mean an American Gadol? What does it mean a Gadol B'Klal? What does it mean a Gadol B'Yisroel? It couldn't call there are certain prerequisites. Couldn't call Dachman Zayin a Gadol B'Torah. That is, first and foremost, you have to be a Gadol B'Torah, otherwise it doesn't start. He was a Gadol B'Torah. He was a Gadol B'Torah in all its mitzvot. He was a Maggid Shia here for many years, said a Shia in the Bismedich, and said over the classic Torahs, he said over the Tzeisen, the Sivison, and the Birchis Shmuels, and always with a Neifach Mishaloi. He was a Talmud Chochem in the regular yeshivish sense. He was a Baal Halacha. He was a Baal Halacha in Abba Chelkish Chuchnoch. He was a Pesach, and he learned with Talmidim, he learned Yedeya, and he learned Choshen Mishpat, and he answered in all Chelkish Chuchnoch, and he wrote a Sefer, an ongenommen a Sefer of Tshuvas. Aside from that, as was mentioned, he also was a Yadin in all Chelkei HaTorah, things that we tend to, we don't have the time or the interest of, but he was, of course, a Yadin Gadol in Tanakh, and therefore he was a Dash and Nifla, his Kemayim, his Gabba, but even other mitzvahs, in Tigduk, and in Seidik Iber, and all kind of strange things, and things that had to do with technical Sachen. He was a Adam HaSholem in the sense of Torah. All the Torah was there, and it was all at his fingertips. And he had his Zikaron Nifla. As a person, I went to see him, and I told him over a vote. He says, yeah, you told me this in Springbound. He says, at that Matzah, this is a Matzah, what, 50 years ago? That is one of the prerequisites, is that to be a Gadol B'Torah, to be a Gadol, an Adam Gadol, you have to be a Gadol B'Torah. And he fulfilled that in a major way. He was Yadin Kol HaTorah Kula. Also, you have to be Baal Chesed. He was Baal Chesed Nifla. As mentioned before, he was Baal Chesed Nifla, B'Prat, B'Klal. If you needed a Torah for somebody else, for yourself, this was the address. He was a good mensch. Did chesed because you're supposed to, did chesed because you admit you feel. He was a good mensch, and most of the things that he did, I'm not aware of, because the things were done privately and quietly, and a few things that I am aware of are not to be spoken about, but he was a tremendous Baal Chesed. That's the second Omer. The third Omer, of course, Avodah. He was a Baal Tefillah Nifla, and not only did he have the talent, but he had the heart that goes with it. So the prerequisites were there. He was a Gadol B'Torah, he was a Gadol Chesed, he was a Gadol Avodah. That does not yet make you a Gadol. Gadol B'Yisroel. To be a Gadol B'Yisroel, you have to be an innovator, you have to have courage, and you have to have leadership. And he did that, and changed many things. And he was a leader here in Torah B'Das. He filled the yeshiva, like was mentioned, he filled the yeshiva out of a matzah and into a better matzah. He was a leader in the yeshiva. Before he became Rosh Yeshiva, he was a leader among the staff for many decades. He was an innovator. He was an innovator in the field of kashrus. That here's a matzah where I remember growing up, we used to try to look at ingredients and know what to do. Now you can walk into any supermarket, any place in America, and come back with reliable kosher food. It's a thing that's not in the yeshiva, but this was what he did. This is one of his places of leadership. And in camp, not only did he teach and use his summertime to teach and be Megadol Talmidim, but he changed the face of camps. Camps used to be two kind of camps. There was a camp where he basically played ball, and had night activities, and there was an hour or two given over to learning, which was a Yosef desire. And then there were learning camps where you learned all day. Not everybody was up to that. He managed to transform Camp Aguda, which is the premier camp, from camp number one to a camp where you can participate in the camp, and change it to a place where you basically learn. And this started out, there were a few kids in the camp that everybody sort of didn't like and made fun of, until it became a major chelik of the camp, and other camps followed suit. This was a case of leadership, innovation, and courage. And this is what he did in Teva Das, and this is what another Gadol is. I think he defines what another Gadol is, a Gadol of Yisroel. And it's not only something that we have to recognize, but it's something that we can and should emulate. In this week's Parashas Yisroel, we have the Parashah that Yisroel's Eitzah. It says yesterday he was mother a Parashah in the Torah, and he set up, seems like a very good technical system of Sohalot and Sohameis, and it seems it was a pretty good idea. You have to go 2 Solim weiter to the beginning of the Oven, and you see it wasn't such a great idea altogether. It's obvious it's part of the Teichota. The beginning of Parashas Vovim is Teichota, the Derech Seisa, and then comes the big Parashah of the Parashas Yisroel in detail. So obviously it was part of the Teichota, and the Rashi says, what was the Teichota? That they should not have accepted. They should not have taken other people in between. From who is it best to hear? Isn't it best to hear from somebody that talked that HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And it was taken as a fault. I think that the first parasha starts with the pillar between Moshe Rabbeinu and Klal Yisrael, which eventually led that he could not raise them to the Madrega, and he could not lead them into Eretz Yisrael. But it came from their lack of appreciation. Minor Lishmoya. Minor Lishmoya, Rabbi Belsky started his day early in the morning, and we know pretty much what he did. He would say she would learn, he would say Shia, and he would learn with Yechidim, and then he would try to answer the phone, all the shaylas, and then he would say another Shia. And this went on from early morning till later. Because it was Noya Lishmoya. It was good to hear from him. It was good to hear from him personally. And I think the Olam appreciated it. She were always well attended. They were interesting. They were kol mitzvahs atayv. And this, the Noya Lishmoya, this voice has been silenced. Yes, it still reverberates in the hearts and minds of Talmidim. But sadly enough, there's no more. Shame the friends and the staff. I'd like to ask Mechila. We were not make him. Not giving the proper call. But it was a good thing. It was a good thing, and I'm sure it's my thoughts. And he should be a male association for the Rebbetzin, for the children, sons-in-law, daughters-in-law, who were mishamishim, with such Mesilas Nefesh, and tried to take care of all his needs. Should be made association with the spoken Kodesh, the Torah Das, that he gave his life to. And he should be a made association with Klal Yisrael that he loved so dearly.
כן, מוריי ורבותיי, we just listened to the hesped on Rav Belsky Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. And now we're going to hear Bezras Hashem, Morai v'Rabotai, we broadcasting the Levaya of Gaon Rav Yisroel Belsky Zecher Tzadik Livrocha that passed away today. Motzei Shabbat, he will be taking to the JFK airport in El Al to be going to Eretz Yisroel, that Be'ezrat Hashem, the Levaya will take place on Sunday in Eretz Yisrael.
Nafla, Ateres Esheni, die Yeshiva, Hatalum, the Yeshiva, the Yeshiva is giving the Kopf von der Yeshiva, the Yeshiva is giving the Herz von der Yeshiva, the Yeshiva is giving the Herz von Klal Yisroel. Wie hat gehört, wie hat gesehen, a Yuchet, a Rabben, was darf Chizik, was darf Tiken, ist gewähnt dort, auf dem stillen Häufen, seine Habes Yisroel ist wie ein Hafledig. Nächten sind wir gewähnt dort, im Spital. Wir sehen dort, Kanale, Hebrelas, Ashti, Zin, Techte, Meure de Keidel, weißt du, es ist ein schweres Mann. Menschen, fremde Menschen drehen sich. Im Kolse, kein heuer Wort nicht gewähnt, sehr fein, sehr edel. Aber uns haben wir gesehen, noch eine Sache. Sie gewähnt dort, Tapuin gelacht, wo sie nicht für die Mischpuche, sie sind dort die ganze Zeit. Wer ist das? Ist ein Zeugen geworden in dem Stieb. Wer ist es? Ist ein Getreide dort im Stieb. Ein Mensch, mit der Sahn, Mischpuche kann ein Haar, beli ein Haar, soll noch sich andere Menschen herannehmen. Das Tatsch, als sie gewähnt ein Problem bei ihm müssen, du sie gewähnt der Stieb, du sie gewähnt der Haus, sie werden offen für jeden zerbrochen Hals. Ihr Gedenk, wenn Russland hat ungeheuben, öffnende Tieren, herauszulassen Menschen, pflegen durchkommen, ältere russische Jiden, ältere russische Frauen, wehmen um sie Gesicht. Ein Mensch, Rabbi Belsky, Rabbi Amul gestanden, sie kommen, ein Jid, nicht kein russischer, weiß nicht, was er Jid. Ich bin sicher, dem Jid hat keinen nicht gegeben mehr, wie gefordert. Kommt zu Rabbi Belsky hat $20. Suchte mir, sie geben, ein Jid weniger wie $20 ist besäuen. Ein Mensch viel mit Herz für jeden einen. 4 Jahre zurück ist krank geworden. Ich bin gewesen im Hospital zusammen mit dem Rosh HaKoyle oder Bleibel in Skimmer dort tun. Am Neus sucht, man kann nicht daran gehen. And what's the use? A vegetable for the rest of the life. So sagen wir Wort, ich weiß nicht, so gespinklich. Der Eibisch hat aber geholfen und hat ihm gegeben am Atune, hat ihm zurückgegeben das Leben, hat ihm zurückgegeben der Keuches, sei bemeuert, sei beruf. Meeg dich als ein Mensch trachten, nur doch als ein Machle, Können wir sich ein bisschen aufbringen, take it a little easy. Nein, die ganze Matune von Himmel hat übergegeben für die Klau. Die ganze Matune von dem Himmel hat übergegeben für die Yeshiva. Zurück lernen ihre Ideen, zurück lernen Choshen Mishpet, zurück Meetings, Sachen sein, Mechazig sein, stärker machen und noch stärker machen die Yeshiva. Hat mit seinen tiefen Gefühlen die herausgegeben an Kurs hat Teuf zum Beure Kalilummen, also hat zurückgegeben das Leben. Der Hagusch ist mir gewaltig. Letztens hat der Chassene gemacht, dem jüngsten Kind, Jakob Benjamin. Ist Simche bei der Chassene. Die Gemur sagt, Geschäftsführer Bläser, Nechnesi, Talmidov, in so einem gesucht, Rabbeini, Yilamdeni Orchos Chayim, Shenizke, Lachaya Oilam Abu, fragt es Lach, du sie gewähnte Talmidem, de Gedeule Yisroel, sie gewähnt, bei seiner Reden, der Gudische Yisroel, in seine gewähnen am Matzef, wo es Chance saß, wie der letzte Bakusche, wo es gekämpft und Frieden, Geschäftsführer Bläser. Haben sie gebeten, als sei, so gedacht, beten zu Haschlumme, sich Maschlum zu seiner Jüdischkeit, Maschlum zu seiner Avoides Hashem. Der Wale, was haben sie gebeten? Sie haben gebeten, mir willen solche sein, Zachaya Oilam Abu. Du sie der Schlumme von einem Mensch, der Schlumme von einem Jid ist der Jid auf Trachten, ich die alles dem Rutsch der Beure, wer bin ich? Nur, die Gemurre sagt, bin mit Zweisov, und man weiß so, bin mit Zweisov, Chufetz Beut, bin mit Zweisov, Leute des Chame Zweisov. Alti kabudem am Shamsh Mesarav al Manas Lekal Pras. Und du beten sie mir, wenn solche Salachai Oilam Abu. No, der Schlag sucht Tavade, Thomas Geit, Aid Geit bederech ha-teure, ist der Oilam Hazeh abderech mefulisch, und sie kommen zu Oilam Abu. Aber wen hat mit dem Oilam Abu? Lacha Miese. So aber du noch einmal Halach. Was ist du, Oilam Abu? Es ist nicht du dort lo Achille, weil ich ziehe. Tzadikim Yoishim, wat ich sehen, Barosheim, wenn einem ist was hinne. Oilam Abu, ab der Weg ist, bebeure Kolilumem. Ist du noch einmal Halach Achaim. Agressen, dem Rotzen Hashem, Biswil Rotzen Hashem, mit dem ganzen Ahave, mit dem ganzen Cheshik, in so wird ein Dovet bei Hashem, hat man Oilam Abu auf der Welt. Es ist noch besser, der Oilam Abu später ist Hayoim la Soisam, Veloim Uchel la Soisam. Aber der Oilam Abu auf der Welt hat man dem Schar mit Nasias Hamitzvah zusammen. Tzadikim b'chayim nikrem b'misusa nikrem chayim zog des lach weil Oilam Hazeh ist Oilam Hamise mir stirbt nicht auf einen Moment mir stirbt up zu bislach a Kind ist ein Monat alt sucht man ist ein Monat alt ist alt als Jink der Teres ist den Monat schon vergessen sie sind nur gestorben der Monat ist Tzadikim, Oilam Misuson, in dem Oilam Hazerus, Oilam Amise, aber wie bald sind durch zum Oilam Nikruim Chayim. Dus haben die Talmiden gebeten, ist gewinn an Ilui, in der Inge Jung, nicht heim geworden. He was a genius, in a Baltishre Neure, es gewinn an Balzikur Nifle, gehabt gebencht mit Talenten, das Buße zu genommen hat gekannt. Ist nicht Gadel geworden in den 60 Jahren zurück. In den Low 50s und Middle 50s ist schon gewesen ein Bucher. Weißt ihr, wo es der Wind, weißt ihr, wo es der Style von jenen Jungen sind gewesen, zu nehmen dem ganzen Tischren, zu nehmen dem ganzen Talent, ist heranwerfen in Professionalism, ist heranwerfen in Geld, ist heranwerfen in Wehren mit Armefosen, in Ehren jene Jugend, anders von Raubmenschen, hat Demus verstanden, dem Kiheim Chayeni Boile Mazeh, Kiheim Chayeni Boile Chimeni, sich mit Dabek in dem ganzen Kischren hat reingestellt in der Teure, kennt Kolateure Kille, die kennt in alle Mikzoyes, aber die kennt reden mit dem Sein, Aluche Sein, Gemurre Sein, Londes, wusste soll er sein. Der Rosh Hashiva, der größte Baltischren, hat gar keine gewaltigen Scheiches mit Bucheren Balkischren, in Gelab Balkischren, so haben alle gehabt, wo sie lernen finden. Sie sind frisch Mischbitz, sie sind Ebenezer, sie sind Archaim, sie sind Jeredeia, sie sind andere mit Zeusum. Jeder hat gehabt, wo sie lernen finden. Aber auf derselbe Zeit hat genommen, a Pushet Buchel, a Beineni, öfter schwacher wie a Beineni. Und hat ihm so immer Karab gewählt. Wir suchen in Davenen, wenn Nafschika Ufer la Koiltier. Die Erde mit dieses Fertilisen, mit Schmutz. Nur wusste ich der Opfer. Der Opfer nimmt heraus den Masche Hitoiv in dem Seed. In dem Masche Hitoiv, was sie tun in dem Schmutz. Und als man schleppt heraus dem Toiv, kann rauskommen a Peirus und soll können a Bruche machen darauf. Genehmen a Buchel, wo der Buchel ist gewesen ein bisschen schwach, hat rausgebringt am Teuf. Sag Hashives, hat rausgebringt, der Buch hat allein gefühlt Chushev. Der Buch hat gestellt ein Chushev-Stieb. Sie sagt, Bruche zu machen. Jetzt es hat Zeit, leider sich zu segnen. Ihr kennt Jugend, ihr kennt. Da sie gesegnen, mit Stamme hat noch nicht Macht so gewinnt. Stamme hat man einmal gesucht etwas. Es beschämt eine Yeshiva, die Talmide Yeshiva. Alle, was auch Maschayach ist in Yeshiva, beten wir Machile, den größten Nefter. Und uns beten wir, also wie das wir gehabt, im weichen Geschmack Hals, beten wir das Vater und Oilem Emes, Gedoylem Tzadikim, dem Isusa und Jesum Bechayem, Mispalzan, Fadam Kushe Verebetzum, Yibud Lechaim, für den Teire, Kushe Kinder, Talmide Chachumam, Balei Chesed, auf dem größten Eufen. Mispalzan für die Yeshiva, als die Yeshiva soll weiter umgehen, reingeben in jeden Woche, in jeden Gemann, ach, Cheshik, sich machazig sein allein, machazig sein einer dem anderen, im Wille am obersten Netzach, im Buchashem, mit dem Autokommen.
Yes, we just heard the Hesped, everyone talking about his wisdom and the goodness in the Torah, and together with the big heart of the Chesed that he used to do with Klal Israel. And now we're going to continue, Bezrat Hashem, to hear more Hespedim from the Ram in Yeshiva Smir.
Pasuk begins, Aloi Seidu, Kisar v'Gadol Nafal Hayoim b'Yisrael. There are times where, although it's obvious, that we're Sar v'Gadol Nafal Hayom B'Yisrael, but the Sar v'Gadol has so many different facets. This contribution to Klal Yisrael serves Klal Yisrael in so many different ways that the core, Goyim, Marbetz Torah, Rosh Hashiva, which is the core of everything, you have to announce, Aloi Seidu, Kisar v'Gadol Nafal Hayom B'Yisrael. Behold, but what's really, whose mita, we're all standing now, is the mita of under everything. And everything he touched and everything he accomplished. But the Shoirish was a great Rosh Hashiva, one of the Yechidei Ador as a Rosh Hashiva, and everything else emanated from that. Aloi Seidu, Kisar v'Gadol Nafal Hayom B'Yisrael. 52 years ago, the legendary Rosh Hashiva of Zelik, Epstein, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, didn't feel well. It was a Pesach Ben Azmanim, and the Yeshiva, Rabbi Yaakov Zatzal, brought the Yeshiva, the Nifta, from Beis Medrash Elyon to say the Shir for our Shir. It was already the first year after Beis Medrash Kaptan. It was the first year upstairs in the Beis Medrash, all the Bachrim, 18-year-olds. And we learned by him as a summer Zaman, Elu Metzias. Always remembered him as a younger man. In my eyes, it was a younger man in his 30s who came from Beis Medrash Elyon to substitute for one of the singular G'dolei Rosh Hashivas even at that time. And it was such an atzlacha dikkas man. Only last night, when I heard that the Yeshiva was only 77 years old, it occurred to me he was 25 years old. Arguably, I don't know if in this Medina was there ever a 25-year-old person that said shiurim for Beis Medrash Bocher, many of whom turned out to be big Talmidei Chachamim in the future. It was a very, very special shir of Bocherim at that time. The yeshiva was at that time an Ema Yeshivas. Didn't occur to us, to me Al Kapanim, that we're dealing with a younger man who hadn't had a child yet. I just heard that his first child was born next year when he became a permanent Rebbe, I think, and he took over the 11th grade, if I remember correct. But that year he said a shir of the Medrash for a summer's man. That's in Poshet, the Havayas, the Abayim, the Rava, to say a shir on that level at 25 years old and take over for a summer's man for one of the big Rosh Hashivas of the generation at that time. Of course, we know the Madrega in Torah to which he reached with the Gebenster, Go'ayna Shekot that the Rebbeinu Shalom endowed him with, and his Shkidas and unrelenting Shkidas HaTorah. Chazal saying, L'madet HaTorah harbe, al tachzik toiva la'atzlecha. Why? Because ki lekach meitzarta. That's why a person is here, whoever is able to, is supposed to learn Torah harbe. But there's a high madrega. What the Chazal say, lo hiniach. There's certain people that lo hiniach, whatever is out there in Torah G'dosha, whatever mikzoya that's incorporated in Mikvah L'Moshe Messinai is lo hiniach, the thirst. He can't quiet his thirst. Lo hiniach davar gadol the davar katan. And on that I think Chazal say, lo hoyavai. Those people are lo hoyavai. Their love for Torah Kedosha, which we know Chazal teach us, hu v'dibur echad, Yisroel v'yaraisa v'kudsha b'richu chadu. Those people that can't have enough, so to say, from Torah Kedosha. That's a greater madrega even than the people of Lekach Meitzarta. So we're talking l'fnei the mita of a singular goyin olam. And all this camouflaged with so many different levushim. The levush of kashrus coordination, the levush of a rav in a camp, the levush of the father of Rosh and jury in the neighborhood. So many different public levushim and the private levushim. The Amud HaChesed, that we just heard from Rav Katz, the home, the base, a house with so many people, so much chasadim. A few occasions where I had the privilege to be an accessory to his chasadim. It's incredible. Wiffel Menschen, lahachyos leivnit koyim, ulahachyos ruach shvolim. Many times I thought if the Rosh Yeshiva wouldn't have had this multifaceted avodas haklal and wouldn't have had so many subtitles to his Gaonis and to his title Rosh Yeshiva, maybe his Hoyroyis would have been even more niskam. His Koiche Be'etera, his incredible Koiche Be'etera, was nemtzer from the tziruf of Kol HaTorah Kula, like we heard before, the moyach of Kol HaTorah Kula, and a leiv, the nosa aliba is ganz klal Yisroel. It would have been more zvatlus to his Hoyroyis. And it reminds me, Rabbi Kiva Eger in Gilyan Hashas, in Erevin, says on the Chazal, that Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rebbe Mechabed Hashirim. So Rabbi Kiva Eger brings from Kadmoinen, why Punkt Rebbe had this ideology, this system of Mechabed Hashirim, more than other Chachmei HaTalmud. This is an incredible reason. He says, because Rebbe happened to be in his own right a Noshe Goda, he found an opportunity that his Torah should not be an Atorah Le'izgadol Boy. Because by deflecting honor and glory, or sharing the honor and glory of his being Rabbeinu HaKadosh, the Chosem HaMishnah, he was able to share it with the fact that he was Rabbeinu HaKadosh, that was Pasach is his Otzroisov, and all kinds of inyanim that he did with his Ashiras Gedolah, that deflected, that the concentration about Rabbeinu HaKadosh wasn't only in his tremendous level in Torah Kedosh, but it was also shared. His Torah was also shared with Kesem Malchus, with the fact that he was Rebbe and Antoninus and Sholei Paskel Al Shulchanom, all the things that Chazal teach us. I was thinking, the Rosh Yeshiva, Zechet Tzadik Levrocha, if not for these extras, these other ksarim, Chas v'Shalom, I don't mean extra as superfluous, but extra means benoisaf to his Kesed Torah. All the other things we know what he did for Bachrim in camp on the side, what he helped. If you needed a chazal before a play, if you needed a chazal, you needed an idea, you needed something, nothing was beneath this Gadol Adar. And his expertise in technical things, and his expertise in how a machine works in Hong Kong or in Thailand or in Singapore. All that. But the fact to who this Gadol Ador really is, it's only in this Daled Amos of this base Medrash for the last 52 years that is Or Torah Zoreach B'Milua, strictly Torah, Torah in Oimek, Torah in Roichav, Torah in all Mikzoyos of Torah. Only over here, Vadai Kabachina, in this Besmedrish we know who our great Rebbe was, Zechet Tzadik Levrocha. Oina Shalom will help him, should be a Melitz Toiv, Klal Yisrael, that who more than him knows the oimik of the tsar and the ka'ev was jeden leiden bis manenu. There was gewaltige Mishpacha, the Nin Rabbanon, Bali Chesed, Chasne Rabbanon, Chasne Bali Chesed, Einiklach, for Yeshiva, Shezoyka Tabila Movis L'Netzach L'Moch Hashem L'Kim Dima Me'al.
Yes, Moray Rabotai, we are broadcasting the Levaya of Rav Yisroel Belsky Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, and we just heard the Rosh Yeshiva of Mir saying Divrei Hesped, and now we're going to hear the Rosh Yeshiva from Lakewood, I think.
Heute sogar Hesped. Es gibt ein Weg an Zeichen, an Zeichen Gott hat, wenn nicht so mal leib, in Chuyev, es gibt ein Weg an Zeichen, heute Zadig, an Gott, in der Ador geht ein Weg, Taten, Chotschik, eins, sein an so mal leib, kommen die Namen von der Elementeuren Lakewood, Shishim ist am Holle, im Stadt zu sein, Mixas, etwas in der gewaltige Größe Evel.
Yeah, we're hearing Rabbi Rucham Olshin from Lakewood Yeshiva, Rosh Yeshiva Maspid, Rabbi Yisroel Belsky.
Man soll verstehen, und das gewollt Magdel sein, und zu verstehen der Evel, was liegt vor uns. Hat gesagt, der Mann früher hat bei Seidu, ki Saar v'Godel nofel hayoim b'Yisroel. Saar v'Godel, sagt der Seide Mishus Rabbarim, was meint Godel? Godel meint, besaratz mer, sa Godel, al Talmud Chochem Amiti, der Schiebe von Terodas, Rabbi Yisroel ist gewinn al Talmud Chochem Amiti, a Goyen in Teure, in Bekiyas, in Lomdis, a Tzadik b'Maisov, a Godel, baldik Maisim Teuvim, bedas, in the Midas Teuvis, es hat weggegangen, a Godel bi Yisroel, Halay Seidu, wir darf das wissen, Saar, ki Saar v'Godel, was meint Saar? So Trushiv sich jetzt hat Woche, Saar meint der Mensch, was hat a gewaltige Hashpoye, ist Mashpia, a gewaltige Hashpoye, die Bnei Yeshiva, Zahle Bnei Teure, Bechlal, Trushiv ist gewesen für die Beine der Teure, geht dort zurück in der ersten Jahren, was gewesen winzig Tobit Rachomim, aber wie sie teure. Als junger Mann ist gewesen für die, was haben Gebäude teure und die Medina. Äußer, was gewesen an Rosh Yeshiva, hat gelernt auch von der Rosh Yeshiva und Matzliach gewesen, gewaltig in seiner Beide, sei Kodesh, auf Aufstellen Talmidim, auf Aufstellen der Ferris von Yeshivas Teure das Millionen zurück gelernt in dem auch im Teure, der Tefalto, hat mir mit meinem Eimen gewähnt gewaltige Größe Talmidim, und durch sein gewaltige Messirus, seine Herzigkeit, man spielt gewähnt auf jeder eine von den Talmidim. Saar v'Godel nofel b'Yisroel, da verstehen wir etwas im ganzen Klal Yisroel, b'Yisroel, nicht nur Aveide, bei Yeshivas Teure das, es ist Aveide bei der ganzen Oilem HaTeure, es ist es Lisboi, der ganze Klal Yisroel weint, steht im Medrash Abechine, es geht weg als a Godel beteure, a Yochid, was ein Mensch, was ist scheuert gewesen, kol a Teure Kule, ich schon mal im Beuche, in Oretz Beuche, es geht weg als a Tzadik, als a Godel bi Yisroel, das a Hefzit b'choloilom Kuloi, die schon mal im Oretz weinen. Aber es ist Dora Abechine von Evel Yochid, das sie locht, die Yeshiva Akdoisho, der Heilige Mokim Teure, das ist der Evel Yochid, das wir kommen zusammen weinen, auf dem, was das Schiff ist, weggenommen von uns. Beteuch Abidosoi, beteuch sein heiliger Arbeit von Abosses Teure und Amodes Talmidim. Steht in Tori Belio, a Talmud Chochem Shemeitz, wo Eniach Mugosoi, Roy L'chol Yisroel, Saneach Olav Lo'oil Mei, Oilomim. Leute Kiddisch, wir wissen, dass auch da hat Bolle, wie viel nach Maß besagt der Größe. 12 Kadoshim, aber da steht in der Religion. Atam Chochem, was ist da weg, wo ich nie auf Tmurasoi, ich do an ihnen von der Sanayach, der Zahl, was klar ist, weil da vorne ist eine ständige Zahl. Aloim und woldige Zahl, der Sanayach, Aloim und Aloim. Und mir gehalten, ein Stückchen Scheile, ist meist euch, dass es ein Jechilistike Indien, Talmud Chochem, Shemeis, wo ich nie auf Tmurasoi. Wie stimmt es mit dem Medrisch? Der Medrisch hat du ein Parshas, wie Kei steht, da bedworim, שאין תשמישה של אוילום וכולם הם עובדו יש להם חליפים. דתייס לזכר לבלת הם החליפים. כסף, זוב, לחוישס, ברזל הם החליפים. ובדוקטור מדריש, תלמוד חוכם שמייס, אין לו תמורה. תלמוד חוכם es geht weg von der Welt. תלמוד חוכם hat nicht kein תמורה. תלמוד חוכם שמייס, אין לו תמורה. steht jeder תלמוד חוכם. jeder תלמוד חוכם שמייס, nicht doch kein תמורה. wie das Masch mit Tobe Jos Masch da Ayochit Talmud Chochem Shemeis wo nicht Tmurase jeder Talmud Chochem Shemeis wo nicht Tmurase nur Tutsach jeder Talmud Chochem Bevadai ist ja nicht kein Tmure steht doch bei Yankel wenn wir jetzt Yankel war Fluss geblieben Yisroel geblieben andere Tzadikim von der Heute von der Siebe von der Dore jeder Talmud Chochem hat sein Sieb sein Hodder und jeder Talmud Chochem ist ein Leut Mura, wir kennen ein anderer Talmud Chochem, aber der Talmud Chochem, sein Heut, sein Siv, das kennen wir schon mal, sein ein Leut Mura. Aber durch die Torah Beliot redet auf eine andere Sache. Ist jeder Talmud Chochem, es geht da weg, lost ein anderes Sug, derselbe Sug Talmud Chochem, ein anderer Talmud Chochem. Hat nicht kein Mura, aber der Sug Talmud Chochem ist noch da. Aber die Torah Beliot redet auf ein Talmud Chochem, Shemeis, wo ich nicht gewusst, ich meinte, hat nicht den Sug Talmud Chochem nicht da. Hat nicht gelost der Sug Talmud Chochem. Der Aveide ist ein Zahli Lomis. Das ist ein Aveide, was mit der Weinen, mit der Plogin, mit der Besameer sein, mehr Lomim. Durch sich, Rabbi Yisroel, das Schiebe für das, weißt du doch alle, als gewesen hat Talmud Chochem, Mufli, die Deure, in unser Dorf, in unser schwache Dorf, ist gewesen Talmud Chochem, was ist schön gewesen, auf Kol HaTorah Kula. Junge Heid, das schon alles gewusst, mit dem nicht gekannt weiß, etwas, was er nicht wissen, Kol HaTorah Kula. Das ist ein Talmud Chochem, ein anderes Sug Talmud Chochem, ein Goyen Otzum bei Teure, Lamal mit Teure. Das ist der Talmud Chochem, was ihm jetzt verloren, Talmud Chochem, Shloyeliach, Murosoi, was lässt nicht der Sug Talmud Chochem haben wir nicht. A Talmud Chochem soll scheuert sein, wo wir fragt wo es ist, aus Dalchal, Beschronoch, in Schaas, Keller, der Emperor von Nord, mit der Sabirus. Das ist nicht doch kein Tmure. Talmud Chochem, Shemeis, Shloyeliach, Murosoi, in der Zahl, Oilme, Elomim. Aber ohne Yeshivas, wenn der frühere Yeshivas gewesen, in Englisch, wenn er Talmud Chochem, wenn er Rosh Yeshiva, auf Bekiyas, es gewinnt Rosh Yeshiva auf Lomdis, so zwei Kreunen, steht es mir Yoyle Deir, so da hat Talmud Chochem für Yoyle Deir, so da hat Talmud Chochem für Yobin Shmure, zwei besondere Meilen sind gewesen, eine Meile von Kol HaTorah Kula, der mir Yoyle Deir, so da wird der Talmud Chochem von Meimig sein und kennen, sorgen für Dusche Teure, und der Wegstand Talmidim, das ist die Yobin Shmure. Der größere Rosh Yeshiva hat getroffen bei Edith Solim, gehabt den Kessel von mir Yoyle Deir, wo mit der Gefrei, wo wird mit der Toma Idee, du musst Kol HaTorah Kula mit der Sabihirus und der Klorkeit. Und gleichzeitig und getrogen dem Kessel, also wenn Rosh Yeshiva mit Yom Shmur, von Meimig sein und sollen Shiyudim und nur wegstellen, die größten Talmidim, der Tabbeide Solim, und dem weinen wir jetzt, wie Yoyle Deir, wie Yom Shmur. Der Chazal sagen, man Malke der Rabbonen, wer sein, was meint das, mein Malke Rabbonen? Wir gucken auf Malke, am Melech hat ein größer Palaz, ein größer Armee, hat ein Sach Bechosim, größer Chayolim. Was ist mein Malke Rabbonen? Wo ist Palazin? Wo ist Armeines? Wo ist Chayolim? Wo ist Macht? Nur der alte Bekerl ist Masber, was ist der Melech bei Yisroel? Steht in Rambam, steht in Tisefte, Was ist ein Melech? Was ist ein Kelly bei Klal Yisroel? Oisik ma boike bere besoche yom. Hat nicht gesehen. Hat neuse beoil, nicht nur mit der Chava, nicht nur mit der Mischpoche. Am Melech ist neuse beoil mit dem ganzen Klal Yisroel, trockt dem ganzen Klal Yisroel. Oisik bei Yom Belaylo in der Zwochen von Klal Yisroel. Das ist mir das Malchus. Was haben wir Chaves an Melech, weil der Spitz neuse beoil. Als neuse beoil, dort der alte drüber, die Gröle Oil, mit Sabe gewinnt, David ist schon auf Malchus. Sie verstehen die Klur am Eils, von aber Eils ist neuse beoil, toll in jenem. Und wie kann man neuse beoil sein mit dem ganzen Klal Yisroel? Das ist doch mir das Malchus. Wir können wegstellen, andere Madreges von Teuren Yerushalayim. Wir können helfen ihnen. Das ist mir das Malchus von Klal Yisroel. Lieber, ihr lebt Olam. Das ist mein Malchus Rabbanan. Am Melech beim Klal Yisroel ist der Rabbanan. Wir haben schon nicht den Malchus. Und wir haben den Rabbanan, was echt von Klal Yisroel. Die tragen jede Reine von Klal Yisroel. Durch die Schiebe äußert ein gewaltiger Gadus und Teure. Aber es gewesen von dem mein Malchus Rabbanan. Er ist getrogen dem Klal Yisroel. Er hat sich ausgedrückt letztens, einer von den Mikroorten hat mir gesagt, als er hat gesagt, dass er hat lieb jeder Talmud alles Nefesh. Und er hat herangetan, jeder Talmud hat keinen Stub gegeben auf der Talmud, die Nefesh gave up an der Talmud. Er hat gesehen, dass jeder Talmud seine soll steigen, soll wachsen. Und er hat mir gesagt von dem Rebbeisoi, er hat gesagt, er wollte dicke Mann, wie guckt unser Heiser, Shabbos Agor und Fahrt im größten Yontif, darf man doch trachten wegen, wie stellt er weg an Pesach? Nein, sein Stub ist voll mit Menschen und jeder Reine hat noch Hase gewesen, jeder Reine hat noch Heide gewesen, Menschen muss am Hom Chizuk, Menschen zerbrochene Menschen und Lollen. Das ist gewesen sein Leben, äußert die Gadus bei Teure, ist gewesen der Mann Malchus Rabbanan, er hat getrogen im Kessel Malchus, getrogen in Klal Yisroel, wer hat gesorgt für mustische Jiden, wer hat gesorgt für zerbrochene Jiden, wer hat gesorgt für Jiden, was mir dann sehr etwas helfen, das ist gewesen der größere Schiebe. Also er wird gehad am Moyach Kabel Moid, er gehad am größere Moyach, und er gab doch ein größere Haus. Ein Haus, das hat er reingenommen in ganz Klal Yisroel. In allen Jahren für Klal Yisroel sehr dort gewesen, zu helfen, zu Leute sein. Wie der Mann früher, der Zavoye zu Michel Yehude, schreibt er, die Scholle geht da raus von mein Stub. Mein Stub ist ein Stub von Teure. Mein Stub ist ein Teure, er hat mit dort gelernt, mit dort Schijurim, mit Gedarrentoppen. Und mit Eisig werden wir mit das Reste, Bahach ist vor Schworen, Bahach ist mit Koyen, שזה איגר חייל סוד ביומוי. Das ist der größere Schiebe, der größere Schiebe der Mabes Teure, aber der hat der Haus, das hat rein und ganz klar ist so, beim Malchus Rabbanan. Nur noch Messiah sein. Steht doch, so Schiebe ist der Zeit, du brauchst jetzt das sagt mal der Mischke Verbannen, als die Sires hat Teures gewählt im Schische Riebe. Steht am Ende gesagt, als wie gegeben Teure im Schische Riebe, mit Zubir mit Teure, mit Tilosse, geht der Werker Talmud Chochem, nach dem Haupt Schisch im Riebe. Was der Pschatten der Sires hat Teure nach Haupt Schisch im Riebe, steht Kiti Losso, Kach Nissin Losso. Sagt er, was mit der Falle wissen so. Ich rede dort zu der Bnei Yeshiva und für alle größere Talmud Chochem und alle wurden zum Teil gesammelt dort. Sagt er, Yeshiva Geschäften waren Teure, darf man wissen, der Yisroel, da waren Teure, der eben schon ein Spiel gewesen. Das ist der Pasch und man Teure, man spielt mit Teure Frau Yisroel. Der gewaltige Schäfer. Also Jürgen sagt, das steht dort in Chazal, aber der Bereue nimmt zu Teure. Das ist die größte Tragödie von Klal Yisroel. Das ist harte Befehle, man hat zugenommen, er sehr viel Teure von Klal Yisroel. Man hat zugenommen, er sagt, Gott bei Teure, er schält bekommen Teure Kule. Aber abends Teure von über 50 Jahren, am Ende von Talmidim, hat der Ferris von der Heilige Yeshiva, und mit zugenommen Teure, aber da wissen, der Bereue gibt er Teure. Weil der Haschpoye, von dem größeren Yeshiva steht, die Tilosse, Kach Nissin Losso, Jesch Haschpoye ist gedäuert, ist in allen Jahren, was gehabt. Die Haschpoye, lasst er von uns, am wir darf ein Zimmer nehmen. Ja, der Reine darf du nehmen, als er beschafft man Teure, darf nehmen die Teure, darf man mit Kabel sein. Darf mit Kabel sein, die alle in größeren Madreis von der größeren Lifte, größere Yeshiva, sagt der Yeshiva mit dem Endekirch, und ich rede dazu, die Bnei Teure, die Bnei Yeshiva, Atem legionischer Melech, die Bnei Teure, sie sind die legionischer Melech, ganz Klal Yisroel ist Teire, aber der Religiöse Melech, das ist dem Teure, leim der Teure am Eilenbo. Atem am Asikim mit Teure und Asikim bei Am Yisroel. Ihr habt auf die Teure, ihr habt auf dem ganzen Klal Yisroel. Wir kämpfen von euch, von der Eier bei der Teure, von der Heilige Yeshiva. Wir kämpfen sich von was heißt Geoinem, Gedeulim. Von dort nach Hause geht größte Gedeulim, Gedeulim. Yirei Hashem, Anshe Yemes, Sheyamnu B'Shamach Yisroel, V'yikul Hashem Yashem Elai. Atem ihr de Yeshiva kol Yisroel, Kiyam Ha'uma. Ihr seid die Yisroel von Klal Yisroel, alles ist toll in euch. Und jetzt in der Zeit von der Tilosov, der Bräulim nimmt zu von uns. Gibt uns das auch klar, Papa und Fälle, ob der Tilos, die Haschboi ist, lasst du Yeshiva verreicht, und ich nicht schon mehr noch hinzunehmen. Wir beten Yeshiva ist Azal, ist ein Amelis Yosha, mit seinem größten Haus, von ganz Klal Yisroel. Jöimel ist so sein und dai, also der Amelis hat der Heilige gemacht im Teure. Das heißt, so viel herangelegt, bis das Nervisch, aber was ist Teure? Der Heilige gemacht im Teure das. Sein Amelis Yosha von ganzen Klal Yisroel, für alle mit Teure ist er Teure. Für alle mit Teure, für ganz Klal Yisroel. Sein Bila Amor so nett, aber Moashe Dima Koponim Amen Vomein.
Just heard Morai Rabotai, the hesped from Rabbi Yerucham Olshin, the Rosh Yeshiva of Lakewood, on the Rabbi Yisroel Belsky, the Chet Tzadik Livracha. אנחנו מעבירים, we go broadcasting the Levaya right now, the Levaya in Torah Vadat, and now we're going to continue to hear Divrei Hesped on the Rosh Yeshiva.
Meint that the Rabbi Gash, Sichlo Mavis B'chol HaTalmud, that his mind, his intellect was frightening. And all of us who knew Rabbi Belsky, as others have said before, were struck by his extraordinary brilliance, his ideas in Kol HaTorah Kula. But it was beyond Kol HaTorah Kula. It was in so many different areas that were relevant to Kol HaTorah Kula. When we would have an issue at the OU to calculate shishim in terms of containers carrying oil, so Belsky, of course, calculated in his mind, what was the volume of the sphere of the walls. In astronomy, that's why in art school, in the Shas, he's noted as a person who explained all those subjects that no one has a clue about in terms of astronomical issues. But it was also, he had a penetrating intellect and almost a clairvoyance. I remember once there was a company, a caterer, that we thought might be cheating. So, and I was about to remove the OU. So Rabbi Belsky spoke to the mashgiach, and he spoke to the different owners. He saw that one of the owners, just by interrogating him, was lying, a former owner, and it was clear that the mashgiach really had complete control of the situation. But it was just his intellect, in terms of his wisdom, was astounding. But there was another quality, I think, that we all recognized about Rabbi Belsky. Moshe Rabbeinu is called Moshe. And it always struck me as strange that his name is Moshe. After all, Moshe was given a name by his parents, Chazal say, maybe Avigdor, Tuvia. Why is it after Moshe Rabbeinu is repatriated to his people, why does his name remain Moshe, an Egyptian name given to him by Baspara? So I thought that the reason is this, that the extraordinary quality of Moshe Rabbeinu was, here comes Moshe, a prince of Egypt. Rashi says he ran Paro's house, he would have been the next king. He goes out and he sees an Egyptian hitting a Jew. Moshe should have made this calculation. Let me wait a while. I will be the king of Egypt. I will ameliorate the situation of the Jews. I will free my brethren. But Moshe's sense of justice didn't permit it. He couldn't even wait one moment. So he strikes the Egyptian, and he has to flee. Everything which others would have made a calculation is then it changed. Moshe, wait. Save the Jews. But Moshe's sense of justice and his pursuit of emes didn't permit it. That was Rabbi Belsky. That was one extraordinary quality that he had beyond his brilliance and his goodness and extraordinary ideas of Torah, was this constant sense of pursuit of justice, even to the most forlorn person on the globe. I remember when we once went, when Manischewitz came under the OU Manischewitz Matzos of Rabbi Kalinsky, that was one of the Rabbanim Machshirim, and just politically how Rabbi Belsky handled all the different Rabbanim Machshirim in general was extraordinary to watch. I think about the story because Rabbi Belsky told me about it just a few months ago. We were talking about it because Rabbi Kalinsky had written a sefer, a wonderful sefer, Mishal Shelish Brisk. It's a biography of the Beis HaLevi. And I remember Rabbi Belsky told me that he followed up with him because he said he had written another volume also about Chaim, and he followed up after Rabbi Kalinsky's death with his family to find Ksavim to publish it. But in this volume, Rabbi Kalinsky tells a story about Reb Chaim Brisker when Reb Chaim was a little boy. Reb Chaim apparently was, as a little child, had diphtheria and was deathly ill. And he was running an extremely high fever. They didn't think Reb Chaim, this child, would survive. And then all of a sudden, his fever broke and he was on the way to recovery. And Reb Chaim told the story. He said, apparently in the Lamdim of old, they weren't so sophisticated. They would hit the Talmidim, and they would always favor, but on occasion, they would favor the wealthy Talmidim, wealthy families, over the poor ones. And Reb Chaim was in this cheder, and the Melamed, there was something, he hit a little boy, Talmud, a colleague of Reb Chaim in the class, and he blamed him for whatever the ruckus was in the class, and he was completely innocent. And Reb Chaim, or Chaim at the time, stood up and he said, I will not learn in a class of a person who's Ma'ana Yisomim. And he left. He never, ever came back. From that time on, with Yeshua, the Beis HaLevi, learned with Reb Chaim. And when Reb Chaim was deathly ill, he said he had a dream. He said the Malach HaMolos was just about to hold on to him. And suddenly, this boy, Dudlu's father, this Yosem's father, appears and stands between the Malach HaMolos and this young Chaim's salvation. And he said, this boy stood up for my son. And the Malach HaMolos disappeared. And at that moment, Chaim said, the fever broke. That was Rabbi Belsky. He stood up for the most forlorn people in the Jewish community, people who everybody gave up on. And he did it at enormous risk. He wasn't always right even, but he did it because he loved the truth. He was extraordinary that way. You know, he was standing in my office. My window overlooks the Statue of Liberty. I always thought Rabbi Belsky was indestructible, especially after he recovered 4 years ago. Who would imagine that we'd be standing here today? And I remember I used to visit him sometimes in Camp Mungan, in Camp Aguda in the summer, and he was a very good swimmer. So he told me, I could swim from here to the Statue of Liberty and back. That was Rabbi Belsky. He was always swimming against the current. His extraordinary qualities of courage, tenacity, and pursuit of justice. It wasn't just his brilliance in Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu was Moshe the Egyptian, the son of the prince of Egypt, who saved Klal Yisrael, and in this week's Parsha became the Nois of the Torah. That was Rabbi Belsky. If it wasn't for his strength in halacha also, none of us in this room would be eating fish anymore. And it was kahena, so many different issues that frankly only he understood, even in the technology of it. That's which he had always a very strong opinion about. You know, we have a journal that we publish in the OU called Masola. So, if you remember years ago, there was an issue about sheitlach. For us, it wasn't, we don't give ashkot for sheitlach. It was okay because there's an amino acid that's used, that's derived from here, L-cysteine. So there's a chiluf mechtovim between Rabbi Belsky and Rabbi Yoshev. You have to read those letters just to see both the elegance of language and the precision and of analysis. Last week I was in Miami and I gave a shir in the Kollel in North Miami. It was a shir in Bishul Akum. But I referenced, because the shir was for a foolish layman and for Belsky, a tshuva that he had written about, you know, the issue about whether Bishul Akum or El Shulchan Aruch depends on the min or on the way it's particularly served. And in the language, it's, first of all, he's 100% right. You know, the East of the Het about the min that depends on the min is always misquoted, he doesn't say it. But the elegance of language, and then Rav Shechter at the end, because we have like a nice, Rav Shechter, one of the places on the OU as well, so, Vayvom smechem ki nisinasa misinai. I remember the first time I met Rabbi Belsky. Before he came to the OU, I had just been appointed to be the head of the OU Kashrus, and there was an issue which re-emerged years later about oils coming in from Asia. And I was there, I came with Simcha Katz, I was on a boat, Rabbi Belsky was there then for the Chav K, and there's these huge tankers. And Rabbi Belsky went down, you know, he wanted to see what it was exactly like. So it must have been several stories high. He went down in a ladder together with Yudel Gruber, Rabbi Gruber. So he asked me if I wanted to go down. You know, Rabbi Belsky was so much taller than me, so I said, I'm going to rely on you. But you know, the courage always, the tenacity, the pursuit of justice, never guessing, just knowing the facts. I remember he told me once, Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Belsky has a very large and distinguished family. So he told me that with one of his children, when he was born, so I guess one of the doctors in the hospital said, you know, why so many children? This wasn't the full doctor. So Rabbi Belsky told me, I explained to him, you know, there's such a thing as an endangered species. We Jews are an endangered species. But you know, I thought about it. You know, Rabbi Belsky also, that kind of brilliance, wedded with the kind of knowledge he had, and the constant pursuit of emes, also an endangered species. Soloveitchik, Rabbi the Rav, when he was master of the Brisker Rav, said, Nicht nur as given Gresser, as given Anders. But Belsky was unique in so many ways. He was an inspiration for us, all the people at the OU. Each year he would give, during our service, make tshuva, give a chizuk, just this Shmona Esrei. Every Thursday he would bring in Talmidim from Torah Das, who would see just the link of the ideas of Torah with the practical application, the Sichas Chulin, the concern for every individual. Of course, everybody would come on whenever Belsky was in the office to speak to him, Chasodim. He was really unique, irreplaceable. I loved him very much. Mi telanu to us.
מוריי ורבותיי, we are broadcasting the Levaya.
Mendel Belsky, brother.
And we're now going to hear the hesped, I think, of the son. מוריי ורבותיי, we are broadcasting the Levaya of Rabbi Yisroel Belsky. We're hearing the spedim. Everybody is speaking about his gadlut in the Torah, that he was be able to cover the whole area in the Torah, be able to be posek halacha to all Klal Israel. He was the head of the OU. He knew the direction, in every field in the JRoot, and everybody is talking about that no one now will be able to take his place. Mi iten lanu tmurato. There is no a different. And when I hear the son of Belsky,
ist geschickt geworden zu Amerika. Wegen der Stammkasches. In Zeiten. Schöner bis zum Schöner.
Hearing the hesped of Belsky's son, now Yisroel Rabadat is alive broadcasting of the Levaya. Of Belsky's son, it must be his father.
You go to America. Das kann wegstellen, Jüdischkeit. Man geht spoiled. Steht da der Seder. Und Seder Pinchas an. The Pasik, Puma Mikesa, Kalyanov. Geschickt für sein Leben. Moshe Rebbeman. Da kommen helfen. Wegstellen, Kasches, wegstellen, Jüdischkeit, Kinder. Nachher hat er mit einer Nähten, der Kinder, hat er auch im Belang. Weiter weggestellt. Teuer. Nachher hat er genommen Einheiten. Seine Tate, Belsky, das hat gelernt, er hat Zeit. Und sein Tate hat Größe, aber es hat Teile. Dann sagt er, Yisroel Belsky, hat gehabt, dass Habes hat Teile. Und so viel. Er sagt nicht mehr, als er größte Menschen lernen. Und hat gesagt zu seinem Sohn, du wirst bleiben bei Lernen. Und das hat es nur die geherrscht. Und sein Seines und sein Tate, die was haben gekommen und weggestellt hier in Amerika. Aber es sind nicht waschet. Ich kann immer weiß, wie ich es. Gehalten, ja, alle Wochen zu gehen in College. Es zu nutzen, seine Kirches zu der Welt. Meine Mama und meine Tante geben Chiddush abzulegen in eurer Zeit. Also so wachsen, Agadol teuer beteuer, Agadol Yerushalayim, Agadol Chesed. Die alle Midas, das hat genommen von seinen Eltern.
gewesen, ich und Tachesahar, Rishach und Rebach. Es wäre ein Achtes. Es wäre eine Warmkeit in der Sprache, der Hauptmond. The Shpacha came together constantly by the Seder, Rabbi Yom Milam, und wir haben die ganze Mishpacha zusammen. Gefühlt, hat am Tili, man lässt es keine mit der Kaddish. Am Segula, haben gefühlt in der Sache, die Achtes in Mishpacha. Achtes of Mishpacha, die begeben der Chayes. Baruch Hashem. Der Chayes. Gehen weiter. Und Evan Bakayl in Melbourne. Und mein Tate geschickt hat ein Kind in Melbourne. Bakayl in Chicago hat geschickt ein Kind in Chicago. Und gefühlt der Chayes. Verklau Yisroel. Jesus, du gehst da weg. Ich dachte mir, immer damit. Da verstärken. Talmiden, Yeshiva da verstärken. Mishpacha da verstärken. Sie nehmen die Midas, sie nehmen die Kirches. Und Beuer auf dem.
Rabbi Belsky, the oldest son.
Here the Rabbi's son must be his father, Yisroel Belsky. Now we're going to hear his other son, Rabbi Belsky, also saying Divrei Hesped on his father. We're broadcasting live the Levaya from Torah
The last
V'Dat.
few days, as the months started getting worse and worse, it took the temperature worse. I was just thinking, how could you replace a father? How could it be a replacement for any father? But how could it be a replacement for a father? You were able to ask for all your entire life, anything, give you the answer. It's irreplaceable. I was just thinking, what was the Nakuda? What was his Nakuda? Looking from a kid's perspective. Goinus, I can't learn Goinus from the Goin. It's either you are or you're not. You could be Hasmadi, you could be a big Talmud Chacham, big Talmud Chacham. But what was his Nakuda? Yeah, from what I thought was his chesed, like we heard before, and his Talmidim, among many other things. But it was his Ika Nakuda. He used to say, says Omer Rabbi Yechim Chol Mokum Shata Mosi B'Losek Shol Chosh Baruch Hu Shom Ata Mosi Nus Nosei. Pashup Pshat is Shom Ata Mosi Nosei. The Rosham has a chayach. You see his anigos. It's not a stira. But he used to say over. He said himself, Shom Ata Mosi Nus Nosei. Pshat is that. What's the godless? The godless is Oysa Mishpat Yosef Almana. Does the godless from Hashem. That's the godless. That Brias. You have to call it for the Brias. It's a Nemzach Untafa Mensch. That's what he did. When people came into him for tzedakah, it used to bother me sometimes. You give people $100 checks, like you're a millionaire. Sometimes he told me he gave so much money to tzedakah, way beyond his means. Way beyond his means. He got upset at me one time. He told me, "What are you telling me what to give? I know what to give. Don't question at all." He didn't want me to chas v'shalom stop him at all from giving what he wanted to give. As you heard before, he took care of the Russians. He didn't look at them like full-on people. He just looked at them not doing Mamina Bechlal. But he held that was the geula from them. We have to do whatever we can. We used to have people by the Seder, sheikhs, so many people by the Seder being over there. There were people who were way beyond who came into the house. I remember one time there was somebody who was a lady just showed up at the door one time, not a normal lady. And I don't even know if she was Jewish, maybe she wasn't from, I don't know, like she was known as a communist writer when she was young. And we tried to get them out of the house. What is she being in the house for? What was going on over here? He said, no, he couldn't take that, he'd throw her out. It was on Yom Kippur, she just showed up by the door, she forced her way into the house. Some of the people wanted to get rid of her. She said, no, let her lie down on the couch the whole night. There was one time, I thought even a burial, that wasn't even a person. One time, there was a cat that just got into the house somehow and gave birth to a bunch of kittens. I woke up in the morning a bunch of times and saw him making sure that the kittens, they were screaming, they didn't have, the mother wasn't taking care of them, so he was taking care of them on the bench, making sure that they could relieve themselves. He said, what are you doing? So he said, no, they're crying from tsar. He couldn't see that. It was, a bunch of them's buried, it didn't matter if it was, see that somebody was going through such a tsar. No one was sticking off his arm, no one was untergegangen for his day. The second thing was yeshiva. He lived the yeshiva. He was here all the time. He lived this place. It wasn't shot that he came over here and he said a shir. He lived Targadas. It was ducha shel nefesh. He was here. That was his makom. Up in 206, all the years, that's where he started in the morning learning his Jesus for something. Like one time, remember, he was learning with Rav Rusa, his Talmud, an old Talmud. He got up and he used to run to the old Masvidim explanation camp. Good. He used to run over there to get the sefer. I said, why do you have to run? Why don't you tell the Talmud to run? What do you have to run for? So he says, no. You get a sefer, you got to run yourself, you got to go yourself, you got to run over there. You have to. I don't want to be the one to run. I shouldn't be lazy and send him over there. I got to get the sefer myself. That's what he wanted. He was so proud of the Kashan Mishpat Kapuru. He never missed a shir if he could help it. I remember one time Shlomi Hudu was getting honored by the Chavetz Chaim Heritage Foundation. He was giving a lot of money. All of a sudden in the middle, he was supposed to speak afterwards. All of a sudden, he just picked himself up and he had to leave. Why? Because he had a Monday night shir. So Shlomi Hudu said, what's going on? I said, he has a Monday night shir. He said he has to go. And I saw this by chasanas other times. He was in the middle of the chasana. It didn't matter. It was right by the chuppah. He left. Why? Because he had a shir. That shir was... Nothing could break that. That was what he had to. So it changed around. So he spoke first, and then he left afterwards. But he was already out the door. Had to go run upstairs and call him back down. He used to love to bring the Talmidim to the OU to have shimash, the physical therapy. They were just standing around. They said, it's just amazing how he pushes himself so much. He was their best, the pride and joy. He said, why is he? So one doctor said to the other one, it's because he wants to go back to say his lectures. That's what he wants to do. This is what he's pushing himself to do. That's the way he was. His mind was always in the yeshiva to come back to say shiurim. The last kufa when he first got sick, he was, I never saw him upset, but he was upset. And then he told the doctor, I wasn't there, but he told the doctor, you don't belong here. I gotta go back. I gotta say my lectures. I gotta go back. I gotta say shiurim. I have to say shiurim. What am I doing over here? So yes, the doctor gives me at least encouragement. The doctor couldn't even do that. He came from a place that Megalgal is like they zakev chayvel they chayev. But versteht sich over here. Over here. He had his doctors who B'nai Torah, the Kirstein brothers, and Dr. Ringel took care of him all the years with tremendous nunkite, and tremendous, whatever they could do to help him, whatever they could do. And you'll see that the last few days, it was just keeping him alive. So many tefillas going out. And I remember they said from the Stikel when the Pshnei was Nefte, all the tefillas, well, what are they? They didn't help. But that's not true. Sometimes we brush them once, schus for the nifta that he should have the tefillas. All those tefillas came because of him. Sometimes the tefillas come for the latest man, whatever it is.
This is what he looked. This is what he looked. This is what he respected, and that's what we grew up in the house. The Yeska Shaila, you listen to the Rav, and that's the end. There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing at all. That's the way it was in the last days. We asked whatever it was. Shabbat wanted something else. No one could say himself. So Mashiach comes. We give tzedakah all in their own way. But Mom is still here. We don't remember. She said the last 3 years she has no stomach on. But before that, she took care of every single thing of his, every single thing. He didn't do anything in the house. From the bank to the shopping to the cooking, nothing. Nothing. It was all on her. But that all came, should be Melsiyash for her, for us, for the rest of the family.
Speaking about his chesed and how the house used to look like. And now we're going to continue to hear the Levaya in Yeshiva Torah Vadat. There is thousands of people, and they all came to Kvod Torah, to one of the Geonim, Iluyim.
That I heard a few times from him.
Now we're going to continue to hear the
Levaya. You say it in the Haftarah for Parshas Nachamu, Shabbos Nachamu. The pasuk says, Kol Aimer Kra. Yeshayahu hears the voice of the Rebbeinu Shalom that says, call out. V'amar ma ekra. Said everything in Olam Hazeh wastes away and withers. But the word of the Rebbeinu Shalom is eternal. My Yisroel said that what does it mean? What is this message? And he said every Torah Dikayit, and the more Torah Dikayit you are, the louder the message. The Torah talks from us. From our Mahalach Achayim, the Mahalach Achayim of the Yid is Yovish, Otzir, Novel, Tzitz. That Olam Hazeh means nothing. Gashmias means nothing. Udvar Elokeinu Yokem La'olam. The only thing that counts is the words of the Rebbeinu Shalom. This is the koil that the Rebbeinu Shalom calls out. And the Rebbeinu Shalom asks us to continue calling out this koil into this world. Koil Hashem al Hamayim. The voice of the Rebbeinu Shalom is by the water. Moshe Zatzal, he had the koyach of Mayim. You know that Torah is nimshal to Mayim. And the Mayim was Mayim Karim, cold water al nefesh hayefa, on a nefesh that is tired and worn out. And how many people that he met in his life that were looking for chizik, they had lost strength to move on, they had questions without answers, they had doubts. And the chizik that he gave them, mamish kemayim karim al nefesh hayefa, was mamish a tchiyah for these people. He taught them the lesson that ignore the world. The world is us. Yavish chatzer novel tzitz. Just concentrate on Dvar Kein Yokum V'Olam. Kol Hashem B'Koyach. He had a voice that himself, and even together with some of his children, would stand handing out flyers about the importance of Shmir Shabbos, the importance of what his Rebbeim taught him. All his Rebbeim, each and every one of them, that there was no possibility of having an Erev in a city of the size of New York. And in the 70s already, they were handing out flyers on the street corners. And this Muhammad kept on growing, and it got worse and worse. But the Mesiras Nefesh, the Koyach, to fight for the Psak of the Gedolei HaTorah, that's Kol Hashem B'Koyach. And he wanted to guarantee Dvar Elokeinu Yokum V'Olam, that the words of the Gedolei HaTorah, which were the words of the Dvar Elokim, Yokum V'Olam, they would last forever, and they should never be forgotten. Koyel Hashem B'Hodar. We heard before that he had a Koyach De'Hatera, and that's true. But he also had a Koyach De'Yisroel. And the Vidui of Rabbi Nisim Goin says, Asher, we asked the Rebbeinu Yisroel for forgiveness. Asher Hikalta Echmarti, Asher Hikalta Echmarti, Asher Echmarti Hikalti. So we asked the Rebbeinu Yisroel, forgive us. Sometimes the Rebbeinu Yisroel is machmir. Of course, if we're makel, that's why you need a koyach de'atera, and you need a koyach de'isura. You need a koyach to be able to say, this is what the Rebbeinu Yisroel wants. It doesn't make a difference whether it's mutter. If mutter is mutter, aser is aser. Like we heard before, today there would be no fish. On the other hand, Shabbos is Shabbos. Like Yisroel Hanavi said, Yisroel screaming to Klal Yisrael thousands of years ago about not carrying on Yom HaShabbos. This is the Koyel Hashem B'Hodar, the beautiful voice of the Rebbeinu Shloilo. His emes is emes, whether it's l'kula or l'chumra. It has to be the emes of the Torah in the deepest sense of the word. It's not what we want. It's what the Rebbeinu Shloilo wants. Udvar Elokeinu Yokum V'Olam. It's only the word of the Rebbeinu Shloilo. We heard before also, Koyel Hashem Shover Arazim. This is the thing that maybe destroyed himself physically more than anything else. He would come back sometimes from hearing or being at Dinei Torah that were corrupt, with Tayanim that would lie and corrupt things. And we come back to Brachim. The sense of justice that we heard about would destroy him, and physically he would come back sick from these things. I remember one time he comes back and he says, Amaita, says there were two shutfim that were fighting with each other terribly. And they went to a Din Torah, and the Din Torah was corrupted. It was gefarlich. But these two partners, they came to my share afterwards, and they sat down to speak to him. And he says, was married what happened. He says, the shutf that had won all the money, he turned around after their discussion, and he said to my share, he says, he convinced me that I was the wrong one. And he turned around and wrote out a check for all the money to the other shutf. That was such a simcha by him, that there was such a person that was mekabel the emes, that was mekabel the yashras. That's a person who comes to the realization that this world is not what it's about. That was the lesson of Yavish Klatzer Novel Tzitz. To realize it's not worth my whole mitzias over a few dollars that I really should give my shukah. And that created such a simcha for my Shrezitzal. There was Koyal Hashem Choytei Lahamis Eish. There's the fire of Torah, the fire of the voice of the Torah. We know that Torah is Eish, dust. It's made out of dust, laws, learning, Torah. And there were so many different areas where he wasn't just for Torah for himself, which he was a Mordechai Masmith, but he gave up for so many other people, and of course in the yeshiva, but there were so many other programs that nobody even knows about. They was involved in starting for Balabatim to learn, programs for Bachrim, programs for Balabinizmanim, all to do for Chizak HaTorah, the dust of Torah. The people should know, but not only just learning Torah, but bringing back so many mitzvahs, teaching Talmidim how to bake matzahs, teaching Talmidim how to do shchita, how to learn about treifas. There were mitzvahs that were almost forgotten. Nikar on the chelik harayim of chayais, to do the nikar of the Gid HaNoshe, which he was only able to track down one last person in Eretz Yisroel who has the Messiah from Ashkenaz. And together, by himself, together with this person, they brought back the Messiah of how to do Nikar on the chelik harayim of Achayim, and so many other mitzvahs ma'asiyos. But with an Eish, the Eish of Torah, with the excitement, with the dedication, with the energy. In order to keep the mitzvahs of Torah and the limit of Torah, to be the enestik of Torah, keeping it going on from one door to the next door. And not only that, as we heard so many times, but the mitzvahs of Ben Adam Chavera is Mesiras Nefesh. And the Mesiras Nefesh for Achnosas Archa was unreal. Just one little tiny Maisa. He had a Bacher coming over as a guest for Pesach one time. And in the house they ran out of mayonnaise. So you'd say it's a kleinigkeit, run out of mayonnaise. Moshe Zatzal said this Bacher, his favorite food is mayonnaise. He says we need to make mayonnaise for him. And Moshe sat down there, beating eggs by his own hands with one of his children, slowly dripping in one drop of oil in at a time. And they stood there beating and beating and beating. So one Bacher should be able to have, for one meal, should have a little bit of mayonnaise. As a Mesiras Nefesh, for a person that every minute of Limud Torah was valuable. But when it came to giving Hana to someone else, there was nothing more important than that. That's Chaytzei Lahavais Eish, the amount of koyach and energy to put into each and every mitzvah. Ben Adam U'Maked, Ben Adam U'Chaverei. Koyal Hashem Yochel Midbar. It was not always easy. Moshe Zatzal went through so many times where the Gashmias that he had was mamish at the lowest possible. The difficulties of Parnasa, the difficulties of dealing with Zoylam HaZadik HaSakim, and yet through all those times, is Yochel Midbar. It was a Midbar. But there was Yochel, the Midbar was shaking with the energy of Koyach HaTorah. It was shaking with the Dvar Elokeinu Yochel La'olam. With the Mesiras Nefesh for all the mitzvahs. The Mesiras HaNefesh for Limud HaTorah. It never wavered one iota. And the bittul of Olam Hazeh, how worthless it was. Yavesh Chotzer Novel Tzitz Mamish. It was worthless to him. The excitement of another limud, another word of Torah, and which was with Chazara over and over again. That we heard he had known Torah from as a young child, but never gave up. Chazar Nachamal U'Nachamal. And finally, Koil Hashem Yechoil HaYolos V'Yeches Oiv Ya'aros is the shver that sums up Yechoil HaYolos. It's battling against all the various powers of this world, Oiv Ya'aros. The voice of the Rebbeinu Shloim feels the bark of the trees. The trees look so mighty. They look so strong. But the truth is, without the bark, they all die. And the bark is just very thin. And these are the mighty people of the world. And all of this, the world of Olam Hazeh, stands for so little. It wilt. Everything will wither away. The Gemara tells us, the Chazal tell us, that by the Misa of Moshe Rabbeinu is the Rebbeinu Shloim called out. There's so many terrible things that go on in the world. The Rebbeinu Shloim asked, who's going to stand up? Every door they have people who stand up for what's right. They don't allow avlos. They don't allow iyosher. And sometimes they're no longer here. And the Rebbeinu Shloim says, Mi yakum. Me is Yatzev. Who's going to be the one to stand up? Who's going to be the one to carry on? The Gemara at the end of Masechta Saita says, Mishemeis Rabbi Bittul Anavo V'Yiras Chet. And Rabbi Yosef stands up and he says to the Tana, he says, Loisisne Anavo, and Rabbi Nachman says, Loisisne Yiras Chet. And both of them say, Ti'ika Ana, here is me. And everyone has the kasha. What does that mean, there's me? What kind of statement is that? That there's me, it sounds like a statement of gaiva. But the teretz is very pashut. Because what they were saying is that even though Rebbe is no longer here, even though he's no longer here, it's not batal. The ika'ana, is there somebody willing to carry on? If Yosef said, I'm going to carry on. And Rav Nachman says, I'll be the one to carry on. Misyatzev, Miyokim Li'Mirei, and Misyatzev and Poilei Amen. There's nothing more than my shver. So Tzal would want for someone to say to Ika Ana that I'll be the one to carry on. Maybe a Melech Yosher for the yeshiva, for the mishpacha, for all of Klal Yisrael.
We just heard the son-in-law and saying the Hesped. And now we're going to continue to hear the Hespedim on Rabbi Yisroel Belsky from Yeshiva Torah V'Adat, Kotel Yonist 9.
Genesis
somebody wants to go in the big mitzvah, Kvod HaTorah. We're going to continue to the Esped on Rabbi Yisroel
before
Belsky.
about Gewaldige Gadlus in Torah, the Goyles in Torah, which was very behalten, like it was mentioned, because there were so many other things. I was once by Reb Chaim Brim, Zecher Tzadik Levrach, one in Goyne Yerushalayim. I came in, and Reb Chaim turns to his Rebbetzin, he says, "The Veis Vedas ein Tate is an Emes HaGoyim." And the Yeshiva of Rafaim came to the Yeshiva. So his son told me over, one of his sons came, Ben Hasmanim. His son told me a few years ago, he said, his father told him, he said, "Komm, ich will euch weisen, an Emes Talmud Chochem." He said, "Guck." Hat ihn gesehen. Sometimes it was such a pashtus able to walk, to talk to him, to ask a kasha. Over the years, the last few years, learning in Koil, this was hechta. Sh'el noise b'chol makan. It's not just from the Kishroines. The Kishroines, it's a sach Menschen, was haben Kishroines. The Kishroines kommen, the Kishroines gehen. The gewaltige Klarkeit wasn't just, hat gelernt, hat gesagt, Abschat. Noch eine Sache, nicht zu formal sein, Erev Shabbos. There were gewisse, it was mentioned before, gewisse Milchomes, that no one wanted to take it on. No one wanted to take it on. Mamish no one. Everyone, jeder hat gehalten, bedarf es unternehmen, bedarf es tun, but versteht sich, es ist nicht gewesen kein geringer Milchomes. I remember there was once, B'Shas Eine, there was one time, he had a tremendous Akmas Nefesh from the whole Meister. And it was for, say, Yochid, mamish for ein Mensch, that was the whole thing, the ganze Sache, it was for L'Tevus, a Yochid. But even then, B'Shas Meister, I was sitting with him then, and he told me, he was at the Malamet Schus on the Balei Avla. The Epsal Limud Schus, he said Epis. A person can't be Seivel and Avla. A person can't be Seivel and nicht an Avla, nicht in Teire. A person can't be Seivel and Avla, nicht in the Welt, nicht in Dine Teire. Aside from the fact that he wasn't able to be Seivel and Avla, he wasn't able to be Seivel the Kleinigkeit, the Kleinkoppedigkeit, was mentioned haben. I remember when they first started the Dine Teire, he said people, they build themselves a molehill and they can't look outside it. That's all they see is their Kleinigkeit, their money, what they have, and they kind of verginnen kein eins, wir kein anderen, wir können gucken auf a zweite. You have to think what's, he said, Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, the Braisa, it says, Megadaltem and Mantel Kol HaMaisim. Was ist Megadaltem and Mantel Kol HaMaisim? Sie hebt auf ein Mensch und die alle Narrigkeit von der Welt. All the people that are Mavazer, I was once sitting with him in his office, and a youth came, he wanted some money. And my father gave him a check, a check. And then he turns to him, he says, Rabbi Belsky, you can't nicht tun besser von them. I had to tell him, but he did. Was meant to him, I thought, I didn't say anything. My father turned to me and said, you have some money, you have a few dollars. Schein, das ist das. Das war Meisim, it wasn't ein Molige Meisim, it was Meisim constantly. People came in, we machen to be market toiv. And the Chassam Sofer, I'm all my father, I heard this, my father said this over, he said, the Chassam Sofer said, ich weiß nicht, was für eine Teufel getan, jener, als mal so mit Mevase. The people they take, and instead they took the Mevase verkehrt. Oh, we got Daltem and a Mamtel, Kol HaMaisem, the other Narishkeit from the Mensch. My father said it's like someone standing in a plane. Someone standing on the Welt, he's screaming at you, "Heit nicht, ich bin nicht dort." But no Shaykh has told this Narishkeit. The people would take advantage sometimes. Nicht kein Scheinoifen. People that were Shurei Leib. When Yerusha, my Baba Shalom once told me, she said that there were people that no one wanted to take them in. Some mamish emisem mishagoyim at Moirigahat. They were afraid. Who knows what they're going to do? And they would tell her, Mrs. Belsky, please let us come in. They would go in. She said, Kolzman, they were by her. They never did anything. He never looked at the levush hamol from the mensch, his boss of a dom. Is nicht kein Bal Seichel, nicht kein normaler Mensch, ist nicht kein Bal HaKoras HaToiv. Aber Zayid, you have to help. So noch eine Sache, die gewaltige Simchas HaToyre. He once said over a beer in a certain Ravid, why the Ravid uses a certain lotion. And he told his Talmidim, he says, if you're not mispaul from this, how can you not be mispaul from this from this word? Darf aufstehen tanzen. Emes is that the Tzad HaShove in everything is the Tzad HaShove is was mod getan hat und getan mit der Ganzkeit. Wasn't done, nothing was done half-baked. Mit der halbe Sache, mit getan, mit der ganzen Rotzen. That was in Teure, with the comment with the Klarkeit in Teure. Or it was in Gemilas Chasodim, that do the Gemilas Chasodim with the ganze Hermeskeit. They didn't look at the person's Yemekabel, the person's Yemaketoy. Those are nicht negeh. There were a lot of times that Kufis, verschiedene Kufis, that people were mamish noig b'choyse COVID, boilet. Like by the Shabbos table, say other times. And when we wanted to say anything, my father would say over, he once told us over, once the family had a big tinus, there was people that came to the table, mamish, and we couldn't be civil it. He told us over, you do it, the Maiso, the Baal Shem Tev's father, how he was Zocher, so Yonov came and he was Manasseh him. You don't look mit Afton Achesed, mit der Ganzkeit. You don't look at von Neuse wenig. All these other things, the person's Yemekabel, we don't do it because the person's Market Tov or not. The Emes is 4 years already, 4 years ago, on this day, Yud Tes Shvat is when the first time my father became sick. That was Motzei Shabbos Yisroel. That then it was Motzei Shabbos Parshas Yisroel. It was going into Parshas Mishpotim. And this year, Yud Tes Shvat is Erev Shabbos Parshas Yisroel. It wasn't the Dinei Torah that zeigt up the ability to come out with a psak, with the mishpotim, ve'elah ha-mishpotim. It was the koyach of the Kabbalah HaTorah, the Noisan HaTorah, the Idiyas HaTorah, the Ebegegebenkeit HaTorah. That was great. That was great in everything. Like we said, was mentioned already before. That was great in the Hamadas Talmidim. Everyone has to be v'chol banayach limudei Hashem. Everyone has to have a chelik in Torah. Everyone has to learn Torah whatever he can. Schein spät darf bet mechil noch einmal not always neu bekovet gefragt. Someone, Agam, this father, the Rabbi also, but Tamol comes from the Roiv Hegel, person's not Noik, bekovet Karoi, that Mechila, and should be a meditation for Mami, for the whole Mishpacha, for Eineklach, for the yeshiva, for Klal Yisroel. There's the love and the Moch Hashem Elokim, the welcome upon him.
We just heard the son of Rav Belsky.
Rabbi Belsky.
And now we're going to hear soon his other son.
Pasuk says by Avram Avinu in Parshat Vayeru when the Malachim came to visit Avram. So it says that whatever Avram gave to the Malachim personally, so Hashem paid him back personally. But whatever Yukach Ramat Mayim, whatever he gave through a shliach, Hashem paid back through a shliach. It says that Rashi says that the shliach was Yishmael. Rashi says later on in the pasuk that he did it out chinuch to lechanchon. So what's the problem? What's the problem if you want to teach your son? You want to mechanic your son Yishmael to do chesed. So why should Yidden be paid back through a the teretz is that if a person does it himself, then it's a bigger limit to his son. To tell your son to do something is less than doing it yourself. You know, my father, I remember growing up, waking up Shabbos morning, coming to shul, before coming to shul, my father would sit with his Gemara while we would eat breakfast, and he would learn Gemara. We would go out to Prospect Park sometimes, and he would sit there with his Gemara. My father would teach us by learning himself, not by telling us to learn. We would sit there in the grass, running around, having a good time, and then looking at my father learning. But in camp, when I would be in camp, I would pass by the lawn of the Colonial. I would see my father sitting there by himself on the lawn of the Colonial. Sitting and learning by himself, or sitting and learning, teaching me to learn, not by telling me to learn, but by learning himself. That's the way a father is, that he teaches his son by learning himself. That's the way he did it when he went to all the amusement parks and to all the different places. How would he teach us? He would have a Gemara or Mishnayos. He would sit down. I remember one time, years ago, when we were, all my brothers and sisters, they went to somewhere for Chalamoid. I didn't go anywhere. So my father, late at night, after Ma'ariv, he took me on the train with a Gemara. He sat down with me. And we sat and learned. We went to the World Trade Center. We went up to the top. He showed me everything, showed me the stars, showed me the buildings, but afterwards when we came down, he sat down, come Avram, let's learn again. We sat and we learned. I remember his avodah on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, he loved to daven. And Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, he loved to, he davened for the Yomid. And Sukkot and Pesach with his Tal and his Geshem, Chanukah with his Al Hanisim, all his special Nigunim that he had, not only his Torah but his Avodah was very important to him, his special Nigunim that he learned from Zaidi Wilhelm. And from Rav Baruch Ber, he learned Nigunim. He heard over Nigunim from Talmidim of Baruch Ber, which was very important to him because not only the Torah was important to him, but also the Avodah, Shoishanis Yaakov of Purim. Gemilas Chasodim was also important to him. I remember one time my father told me a story where there was a bunch of Askanim and Rosh Hashivas, and they were sitting around discussing a certain issue, a certain moisid. They were going to end the project due to a lack of funding and resources. And Rav Shneur was there, and Rav Shneur got up, and he was very upset. And he said, what's going on here? The segment of Klal Yisrael is going to be stopped because of money, because of resources. What's going to be with them? And he was so agitated, Rav Shneur, and because of Rav Shneur, the whole project went weiter. And somebody came over to my father afterwards, and he says, the reason is because he had a son like his father's Rav Aaron. My father loved that story because that was my father. He said the words of Shaul HaMelech. Shaul HaMelech, when he's running after David HaMelech, he said to his Sarah, Vein choylem ikem alai. Nobody is sick over me. That's what Shaul HaMelech said to his Sarah. When somebody has a problem, it has to become your problem. That was my father. When they had a problem, it became his problem. And it bothered him. The avlus was, if there was somebody was ba'avlt, somebody in business, you think you're smarter because you have bigger brains, so you could ba'avl the next guy. And they went over to my father. That's what bothered my father. That's when he heard that he went out all for to help the person. Just want that my father should be a Meilus Yoshe for the family and for my mother and for Klal Yisrael.
Rav Shlomo Yehuda Rechnitz.
when my shvager asked me to speak, I thought to myself, when people were speaking against my shver, I didn't speak. When people would degrade him, I didn't speak. Now I'm going to speak.
The unfortunate news that we got tonight. Good evening, everyone.
Rabbi, I first want to ask you, Mechila, that I never defended you enough. I never stood strong behind you. I was scared. I don't know how I could ever repair that. I had the ability sometimes, but I didn't speak. I want to also ask you, Mechila, for being the only one of your children who didn't live up to the standards of the mishpacha. Who didn't stay in Kol and learn. Keim chayenu v'yirech yameinu. When I left Kol, I didn't believe it, but my shver said to me, Shlem Yuda, if you're leaving because of money, I will support you with how much money you are getting till now. I will give it to you. So I ask you, Mechila, we lost the Gibar Hadar. He had the Midah of Gvura. He said what needed to be said. He said the truth. And there were repercussions. And sometimes he was dragged through the mud. But he spoke the truth. What people would say about him didn't matter. What it said in Shulchan Aruch, that's what mattered. And he never, ever said a bad word about people who would degrade him, speak Lashon Hara about him. The natural instinct is to open your mouth back. But he was mevater every single time. Of that Midas HaGvura, because he's standing now in front of the Eibishter, and he's saying what he said 3 times a year for over 30 years. Hineni oni mimas, bosi lischani lefonecha, alamcha Yisroel asher shalachuni. I sure didn't want to become. The Rambam says, V'chein chocham she'giya lo'ira, ve'ein amoyre, harei ze moinei ha'toira v'noisein m'chshoyles l'vnei ha'ivrim, ve'ol of nemar v'atzumim kol ha'ugel. He didn't have a choice. When they came to him with the shaila, he had to answer, he had to paskin. He knew he would be hurt. It says, B'tzedek tishvei tamisecha, and right before it says, V'lo sedar p'nei gadol. Why does it have to say V'lo sedar p'nei gadol? You just said B'tzedek tishvei tamisecha. So Rashi, Sheloi toymar osher, he shouldn't say this person's rich. Ben Gedoylemu, he has yichus. Heichai vayishenu. How am I going to embarrass him, the Arab of Vushasai, and see his embarrassment? Oynish yesh badavar. There's going to be consequences. I'm going to be punished. People are going to attack me. L'kach nemar zok Rashi. Therefore, it says an extra pasuk lo sedar p'nei gadol. Unfortunately, when you're dying in a din Torah, if the people are not Bali Madrega, you walk away with at least one enemy. If you make a pshara, usually you walk away with two enemies. B'tzedek tishrei damisecha. It was a mitzvah saseh, like tefillin, like Shabbos. He had to do it. La'alacha, he had to do it. The Morgan Suvis says, Omer Abaya, Hai Tzurva Me'abonan, those Talmidei Chachamim, the Merachman Leibnei Mosa, who the city loves them, their city loves them. Lav Mishum Demali Tzvei, it's not necessarily because they're better. El Misham is like Muchach Lu B'mili Dishmai, it's because they didn't give enough Teichacha to them. This week's parsha, we received the Torah. We all know, unfortunately, what happened after. He had the Egel, the Maisa Egel. And after the Maisa Egel, there's a pasuk, Vayomer Hashem. Hashem said to Moshe, Hinei makom iti. Here is a place with me. V'nitzavta al atzur, and you should stand on the rock. V'hoya ba'avur k'vaydi, and once afterwards my covet passes. V'samticha b'nikras atzur, and I'll put you in the corner of the rock. And the pasuk screams, Darsheni. What does this pasuk mean? Rav Meir Shapiro, in his Sefer, says, Taich, when you protect the Eibish's Torah, when you protect the Shulchan Aruch, the Yeridea, the Choshen Mishpat, when you protect halachas, given the Kiddushin, Kashrus, Chinuch, Vayomer Hashem hinei mokom iti. When you're with me, v'nitzavta al atzur, you have to stand like a rock. You can't bend for nobody. But v'hoya ba'avar kvoidi, once we pass the time of my covet, samticha b'nikras atzur, then I'm putting you in the corner, in a little corner in the rock. And that was the taich of my shver. He would paskin when he had to paskin, and people came out against him. This Amticha, in Nikras Hatzur, he backed away and he was quiet. He said what he had to say. My shver was a person who didn't only mingle with manhigim, with talmidei chachamim. Every person, every age was the same to him. For years, he was the Rav of Camp Aguda. And every one of those children, he considered those his child. When Chana promised the Eibishter that if she'll have a son, she'll give him to the Eibishter. And afterwards she came to the Beis HaMikdash. And Eli HaKohen was there. But there was no Kohen to shecht the Behema. So Shmuel said, we don't need a Kohen. Yisroel. A Chaim Yisroel could do it. Eli said, you're right, but you paskined in front of your Rebbe, and you're Chayav Misa. And Eli told Chana, I'll give you another son. And Chana said, no, El Anar Hazeh Spalalti. This is who I want. This is the son who's going to become big. This is the son who's going to become a Navi. I'm not throwing him away. That was the attitude of my shver. He said this over by the Sheva Brachas. When he spoke after Musaf, by the last chasna I made, he said over this vart. To him, every single child was El Anar Hazeh Spalalti. Two weeks ago, on Thursday night, in the hospital, I was holding my shver's hand, and he said, Shlomo Yehuda, be mechazik me. What could I say to be mechazik him? He just written a song, so I knew some words, and I knew that by my shver how much he loved Shabbos. Like my shvager said, there was no koyach te'er on Shabbos. Shabbos was what he looked forward to the whole week, was his Shabbos. And I said to him, Papi, it's Erev Shabbos. And in Rosa de Shabbos it says, Kadayel Shab, so when Shabbos comes, Is Yachdas, wie es Parshas. It separates itself, misitra achra. V'chol shultonei rugzin, and all the terrible tsaris, all the terrible gzeiros, umori dedina, the midas hadin, kulu arkin this agron mina, they all get uprooted. Shabbos uproots everything. They all pass right over Shabbos. The leis shultona achra, and there's no other ruler, there's no other control. B'chulu la'omen, in the whole world, bar mina, except for Shabbos. Four years ago, same parsha, Motzei Shabbos, my share was rushed to the hospital. He should have gone beforehand, but he was too machmer on Shabbos. Finally, Motzei Shabbos, they rushed him to the hospital. He went into cardiac arrest. And the Eibishter gave him another 4 years. Another 208 Shabbosim. You know why? You want to know the secret? Rosa de Shabbos. Rosa is the gematria of 208. For the last 2 days, they told us any minute. And we stood by the bed, and the doctors couldn't understand what was keeping him alive. And finally we realized he waited till Tzeitzach Echavim. And the Eibishter took him. And it was 4 years to the day. Yud Tes Shvat, 4 years. From that Motzei Shabbos, when his heart stopped beating. I know what happened. He was in cardiac arrest, and there was a tumult b'Pamalia, Shalmala. And he said to the Eibishter, "You sent me so many nitzrachim. You sent me so many people. He didn't have enough time to be as much of a father as he wanted to be. And there was still one son he didn't marry off. And while the son was a medactic and shomer Torah mitzvahs, he wasn't on the standard of the rest of the family. And he told the Rabbi Shalom, I have to go back down to be his father. He needs an Abba. He needs a father. And it's that son who in those 4 years went higher and higher, madrega b'madrega, and is the one today in the family who represents the emes that my shver had. And I saw my shver by the chasna of his ben skunim. he was so besimcha. I never saw him so besimcha. Because the Eibishter gave him those 4 more years because he needed to be an Abba. Abba's gematria 4. He said to the Eibishter, I need Abba. I asked my wife for the Levaya, what was the biggest lesson we learned from Happy? My wife told me, like my shwager said, that he didn't teach us by telling us. He taught us by his actions. He was a man of few words. Chinuch is like a cold. You catch it. It's not taught. He practiced what he preached. And we all saw it. It reminded me of a Maisa that happened 3,500 years ago. That the Gemara brings down in Psachim. It reminded me of the night my shver was on his deathbed. 13 children. The Gemara says the mice in Psachim. About another man who was on his deathbed. He also had 13 children. 12 Shvatim and Dinah. In the Staltum, he met a Shechina, and the Shechina went away from him. Omar, he said, Shema chas v'sholom yesh v'mitosi psul. Maybe someone around this bed, one of my children, there's something wrong with them. Ke'avram, like my grandfather Avram, sheyotza mimenu Yishmael, that came from him Yishmael. V'avi Yitzchak, and my father Yitzchak, sheyotza mimenu Esav. That Esav came from him. Amr Loiban of his children said, Shema Yisroel Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Amru, they said, Kishem she'ein belibcha ela echad. Just like you are Father, that there's in your heart there's only one Eibishter. Kach ein belibeinu ela echad. So too, in our hearts, there's only one Eibishter. Boisa Shah, in that minute, Posach Yaakov Avinu, before Yaakov Avinu was nifter, he said, V'omar, Baruch Shem Kivayid Malchusay Lo'elam Vayid. And the Gemara seems a bit redundant. If Yaakov thought that there was a pekam, they could have just said, his children, his 13 children could have said, Yesh Bili Beinu, Echad. We have one person, you don't have to worry about it. We know there's one Eibishter. Why did they have to say, Kishem Shata Yesh Belibcha Adam Echad? We know Yaakov had it. And that's the teretz. The teretz is how they knew it. They didn't know it because they heard it. They knew it because Yaakov Avinu behaved like there was one Eibishter. That was his actions. Kishem shebelibcha. Our Father, just like in your heart, yesh echad. Gam b'libeinu yesh echad. We saw it from you. And that's how we are today. He asked my shvers to be a Meiltz Yosher for all his children. For his Eishes Chayo. For every one of his Yotzei Chalotzav. And for Gans Klal Yisroel. And as us children say to him now, before he leaves, you should know, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And I have no doubt that my shver is whispering in Gan Eden, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchusay Le'olam Vayim.
Rav David Goldstein. And the last mass bid, Rav Tzvi Belsky.
In the name of the family, our oldest brother Aryeh thanked some of the people. Our entire family expresses a tremendous amount of hakaras hatov to Dr. Josh Kirstein and Dr. Moshe Kirstein. Our father loved them. He smiled every time they came into the room. 4 years ago when he was sick, and this time, even when they weren't responding to anybody else, he smiled. He loved them. They were devoted. They were Bnei Torah, and they cared. Dr. Neil Ringel, my parents' primary care physician, both my mother and my father, my mother's Lazayn Gesund told me about 15 years ago, Dr. Ringel is very getrai to us. He's very devoted to us. And he always was. All throughout the years, he would be in the house 11 or 12 o'clock at night if it was necessary. 4 years ago, when my father was sick, he went to the Kessler Rehab Center in West Orange, and the entire community of West Orange became like family to us. They took care of our father, and they became very close. Rabbi Yitzchak Greenberg, who's my father's Gabbai, he was a musmach of our father, musmach of Papi, who Bez Hashem will be getting married this Sunday night, came for the last few years every single morning to the house to pick up our father, to take him to davening. It's a tremendous aveda for him. He was, of course, looking forward to having Papi at the chasana. Aryeh, our oldest brother, took such good care of Papi and continues to take care of her mother. Every single thing that they need. and we have a tremendous debt of hakaras hatov to him. He's doing our work. He's working and doing on behalf of the family, taking care of our parents. Our sister, oldest in the family, Sarah Hindi, she has tremendous intellect and skill, and with tremendous love and devotion, she took care of all the medical. She managed the medical care of our father. Our father trusted her completely. He said that completely, and he trusted her. And Taka lived up to that. She left no stone unturned, researching, studying, and understanding and doing every single thing she can in order to be able to do everything she could to help our father. And she did everything. She did everything she possibly could, and we did everything we possibly could. Hashem nasam v'Hashem lokach. When my father was in 8th grade in Yeshiva Tarvadas, in his graduation book, it said it listed off the boys in the class, and it said what they wanted to do in their future, which high school they wanted to go to, what they wanted to do post-high school. And in my father's entry, it said he wanted to go to Mesivta Tarvadas, then he wanted to learn in Spring Valley, which was Bismerish Elyon, and then he wanted to become a musician. When it came time to graduate high school, I heard from my father, Uncle Mendy was baramis to it. He was given by the state of New York a full scholarship to college. And he was under a tremendous amount of pressure, he told me, to go to college. And at that time, the scholarship in the state of New York was use it or lose it. Either you use it right away or it's gone. You can't use it. It was a major opportunity for him. But he wanted to learn yeshiva, and he decided to learn yeshiva for 1 year. And he sent a letter to the board, to the state, and he asked them rishus. They said they had a meeting, and they allowed him to push it off just for 1 year, which was an exception. After the end of the first year, he decided that he wants to ask for a second year, and he sent a beautiful letter. And they came back and they said, that's it, we're not giving you any more deferrals. So he thought about it, and he was miyashiv, and he sent them back a beautiful letter. Thank you so much for the scholarship, but I'm walking, and I'm going to go to yeshiva. They responded to him that they spoke, and they met, and they had a bunch of meetings, and they decided that for Talmudic study, they're going to allow in the future people to defer their scholarship to later time. And he said someone who he met, who worked in the Department of Education, found this recorded, this story, and it had his name over there. So what did our father get in exchange for not going to college? He went to yeshiva. What did he get? What did he have in exchange? So he had Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, Mishnah, Talmud Bavli, Talmud Yerushalmi, Medrash, Arba Chalkei Shulchan Aruch, Rishonim, and Achronim. But you know what else he had? He had chemistry, physics, biology, calculus, astronomy, anatomy, physiology, history, poetry, and the list goes on and on and on. Even though I personally never once saw my father studying anything besides Torah. But you know what else he had? He was misbainin b'ma'asav. And he had a lifetime of being oihev, u'mishabech, u'mefar, u'mis'avet taiva g'doyel leida Hashem HaGodol. He had a lifetime that was absolutely defined by what the Rambam says, tzama nafshi lelikim lekel choy. He had a lifetime of shira, everything in his life. Shira was so important to him. He lived his life as a musician. The shira HaTorah. Everything that was about him was defined by the Torah. He didn't, his madregas and amunah, his madregas and yediyas Hashem and avas Hashem wasn't in spite of what he knew. His world was tremendous, his world was huge. And the Rebbeinu Shalom was koil everything, it devoured everything, it enveloped everything. That's what the Rambam says, and that is who he was. In this week's Parsha, in the Sefer Einei Yisroel that was put out a few years ago, it says that Chazal say that Yisroel didn't have as big a madrega as others, as Rochav and Moshe Rabbeinu. And Yisroel said, Ati dati ki godel Hashem mikol ha'elohim. I know that Yisroel went around to all the Avodah Zaros, and now I see that the Rebbeinu Shalom is bigger from all the other Avodah Zaros. Then Moshe Rabbeinu finally he said, Ki Hashem elokim b'shamayim mima v'al ha'aretz mitachas ein oid. So Papi says in the Sefer, we think that Yisroel was some pachas in the madrega. How could he say that? Gadol mikol like him. Well, mizen nasak yesef, and then we think that Yisroel that it's a pasnished. But he says, how often do we put our faith in science? How often do we put our faith in medicine? And we turn to the Rebbeinu Shalom, just as an aside, we have to do it. Chaisol did Averis, the Rebbeinu Shalom brought Tzaras, then he did Tshuva, then it got better. So, and then it says, and all the other history, the politics and the economy, and all the other things that took place during the Melech, Halayim Ksuvim al Sefer Divrei Hayamim, you can look in the history books. So he says there's tremendous, brilliant historians, scientists, historians who write history and spent their life understanding history, the rise and fall of empires and how things, the ebb and flow of history and how things came and how things went. And that's how they believed, that's what took place. There was cause and effect, and there was all different types of reasons. But he said the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says there's only one thing that happened. V'yasu Yisroel hara b'nei Hashem, and that's it. All the history you can go and read. And he knew history. You can go read it in the history books. But you want to know what things, everything was just amassed to give it a little bit of a natural order. And that's why Yetzias Mitzrayim had to take place b'chipazon, because the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted that moment in history when the Klal Yisrael went out and became an ummah to take place in a way that no one will be able to attribute it to anything besides the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Klal Yisrael went from becoming an entire nation of slaves into becoming, in 1 second they were free. These are just a few expressions of the tremendous awareness and the passion for the Rebbeinu Shalom that overwhelmed and encompassed his entire being. It was an entire life of Tzama Nafshi L'Elikim, and it was a life of Ahava for Misha Amar Vaya Olam. There's no doubt there's going to be a tremendous amount of people, a lot of people are going to hear a tremendous amount of stories in the next few days, in the next few weeks, and people are going to be in this era to use their resources to write books and to remember and to record the stories about our father's life, and that's all tremendous. But there's something that's more important. There's tremendous amounts of thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of shiurim. And we live in a dar, maybe the Rebbeinu Shalom, we don't appreciate what we have, so he gave us tapes, he gave us videos, so we can even see afterwards. And that's something that people should put their koiches in. Bez Hashem, Papi should be a Melitz Yosher for the family, and like Ari said before, the yeshiva Tarvidas was Ahavas Nafshay Mamish, and the Rebbeinu Shalom should bench the yeshiva, and Papi should be a Melitz Yosher Rasan for Klal Yisrael.
The Shiva will be at the Belsky home, 506 East 7th Street. The siblings will be sitting Shiva right after the Oren goes Matzai Shabbos. The children are going to Eretz Yisrael and are planning to return Be'ezus Hashem Monday, approximately Shkia time. The davening will be 7:30 Shachris, 1:45 Mincha, and 9:30 Mariv at the home. Yeshiva also expresses its Hakaras HaTov to Rav Yitzchak Greenberg, who was Reb Belsky's Rabbi with tremendous devotion, dedication for so many years.
El Molei Rachamim Shecheng B'Mraimim Am Sei Menucha Nechoin Al Kanfei Ashchino B'Malois Kedoshim U'Tohirim Kizoyar Horakiyam Asirim Es Nishmas Chaim Yisroel Ben Doiv Halevi Sheholach Li'Olamoy Pavur שכולנו מספללים בעבורי ויתנו צדקה בעד אזכרת נשמתוי בגן עדן תהיינו חסוי לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסייזה כנפיו לא ילמם ויצרור בצרור החיים אש נשמתוי אדוני הוא נחלתוי וינוח בשלום על משכבוי ונאמר אמן.
Boys, Pizza, go ahead. Don't move it, Gagi, don't move it. Wait 1 minute, Gagi, hold on 1 second. Hold with our hand for 1 minute, please.
The Nifter siblings will be sitting Shiva beginning Motzei Shabbos at 6:32. Sorry, beginning today at 6:32 East 5th. At this time, we would like to thank the entire New York Police Department for doing a phenomenal job on such short notice, and of Yanki Maya from us.